Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Sack Down. Today we have Los Ratones, Crownie with us, former LEC AD carry, former reverse sweep in finals, 1 game away from being an LEC champion. With us today, one of the homies, somebody who joins the Sack pretty frequently, I would say, somebody who's been on my content for years. It's good to have you here to talk with us, Crownie. I'm excited to get into this conversation. Go back down memory lane. Start with probably the middle of your career when you joined Vitality. I think that would be a pretty decent time to start, and just have everything go from there. How have you been so far, Crownie?
I've been good. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy past few months, I guess, since I was benched and now I'm not, and the project is pretty like out of nowhere. But yeah, I mean, I'm thankful, and thank you again for having me. And I hope we can have a nice conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm ready for it. Obviously, we're joined by Yamato, the co-host, as always. Don't want to leave him out, but we'll start right where we said when you joined Vitality, because we've talked about this before, and we've spoken on co-streams about your career, but it's been very up and down. You've been like in LEC, people think you're good, then like one day later, it feels like things change. I know this is something you've dealt with throughout your entire career, so let's start there with talking about how you feel with community perception, because it feels like your value is just all over the place. You're like the best in the world, and then you're not LEC level the next day. How do you feel about how the community perceives you as a player?
It's very mercurial, I guess, or whatever. Like, it just changes constantly. Like, before I joined BDS, there was comments saying me and Labrov will be the worst bot lane in the LEC, and then there was comments saying 3 months later that we're the best or among the best. Like, I don't understand it fully, but I think it's hard to say that I was not LEC level in all these years. But I guess some people had a different perspective. I know people's criticism in SK was genuinely that I take too many resources to carry my team to wins. Like when I carried the roster to playoffs, that people thought they're gonna be 10th place with like Zaze and the role swap Genax first split. Like people were saying I legit take too many resources. Like, I don't know what that even means, because that was just the only way we won. So and other than that, like, yeah, as you mentioned, the Vitality time, it was the split that EG broke verbal agreement with me.
So shit.
So, like, I was supposed to be, they told my agent I'm in on a Friday, like 99% in, and the next day they took Ignar. And what people didn't know is that SK wanted me to sign without knowing the roster, and I told them that doesn't make sense. Like, I need to know who the support is if Limit is leaving. Like, I can't just commit to you guys if you won't even listen to my input about roster. That just doesn't make any sense. And I wanted to go to like a team that I felt I had higher ambitions, even though I could have like gotten a pretty good contract in SK for like 3 years, I think. So then I ended up losing AG, and SK was too late. And then there was rumors saying that I was teamless because I wanted G2 and Fnatic offers, because there was like, I think I had an interview with Yamato, but I knew it's not really realistic. And I think Ocelot called me, but I missed the phone call, but I don't think that would have went anywhere. But that narrative was fake. Like, I just wanted to not spend my whole career in one team that I felt like did not have the same ambitions as me, and was not listening to my roster input, because I wanted to keep Trick and they didn't. So yeah, and then there's like this narrative that I like thought I'm insane and I deserve to be on G2 Fnatic and I'm so overrated. I just got lied to by G. That's it. Like, there's no deeper than that, you know. And then I was supposed to go stream for Gen G with Nemesis and LS, because they were nice to, you know, help me get that. But I still wanted to compete. And the trip got delayed because of I got COVID, so I couldn't go. Otherwise, I'd just be in Korea. Then I don't know if I would have joined Vitality, because they wanted me to try it against some ERL team. And I obviously, like some French team, I obviously stomped it. And then the CEO or the coach was like, wow, he's really good, no? Like, wow, he's so vocal or something, and then they just took me. But it just makes me think this is also fake, because it hinges on some random tryout against some ERL level team. It just didn't make any sense to me, but I really wanted to compete. And I think if they put me earlier in spring, that Vitality roster, we would have definitely made playoffs because our record improved after I joined. And then I self-made and leader joined for summer, which is where you wanted to sort of start, right? You said?
Yeah, I mean, there's a fine place to start.
Yeah.
I think what you talked about beforehand is definitely a good intro in. I mean, one thing I wanted to hit on is that this was the roster where you replaced Comp, and I think the common theme that I've noticed throughout your career is that when you join a team, there's instant impact. It was the same thing with like BDS. Like you're a player that's vocal. Like we see it now with Los Ratones. You're somebody who wants to like call setups, and you know how to like direct the game around you and what you need to do to carry. And on a lot of these teams that you join, you're not joining top teams where there's like an established plan towards winning. You're joining teams where the games are kind of random. It's like people are just doing whatever, and if they win, they win. They lose, they lose. But most of the time, you're joining teams that are like middle to bottom of the pack, generally towards like 7th, 8th place roster. So to me, before we go into summer, like when you join this Vitality team, like I feel like what happens with your career is people forget like how it starts. Like they forget how it looks before you join. Where Vitality was like one of the worst teams. Comp was benched from the team. Then you join, your team has an identity, you're suddenly winning through you. Same thing happened in BDS, same thing happened in SK. But it feels like those times, like, you don't really get credit. Do you think that there's like a reason for that, like specifically where people just, is it short-term memory? Why do people just not remember the beginning of your time in teams?
I mean, I'm probably not the nicest person in solo queue, that's for sure. And maybe when people see like even now, I see some people perceive my personality as like toxic. Maybe because of the way I speak or because of the way I express myself. But I'm sure that people who have played with me know that's not the case. But I know when I joined Vitality, I got so many hate messages from Greek people, just that I'm the worst player ever and that I'm disgusting. And we lose a single game and I just get so much hate. And everybody ignores the fact that I improved our record after we joined. And nobody cares. And then in summer, I mean, I can't tell you why this happens. I don't understand. It was the same in SK, like 2020 summer, because I carried us to playoffs. I had so many MVPs, and some people really liked me, and some people really didn't like me. So I guess I'm just polarizing in that sense. I don't know why exactly. But yeah, I've noticed it. It was kind of the same in BDS. Like in winter, spring, people were saying I'm like top 3 easily. Because I think in my winter was already good. People expected nothing of us, and me and Labrov were playing well. Like we took G2 bot lane in some games. And spring, we just had like the best split ever almost for the orc. And I was like carrying many games because of the meta. And people
This
were
was like
praising
Zeri, Jinx, Aphelios meta for people that remember.
Yeah, and Labrov was like playing Lulu and always playing with me, and I was getting many resources, and people were like, wow, this guy is the best AD carry, and wow. And then a few months later, after Worlds, where we played 2 like we literally played Damon and JDG, by the way, who had YamatoCannon, Deft, and I don't need to tell you the JDG roster. It was probably the best team of the year, like widely regarded as the best roster. Yeah.
No, that was T1.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, T1.
like,
T1 ended up winning Worlds, so they're the team of the year and like, all 5 players of the year. So
and it's like I had bad damage. That like their reasoning was I had bad damage dealt in World's main stage, but half of the World's main stage games were against Damon and JDG, like 3 out of 4, because the 4th one was mad and we just got cheesed the one by Belviv, so there was no game. And it's like, and then people say that like I was so bad and not even LC level, but 3 months or what? How many months earlier? 5. I was a game of winning finals, and I'm sure I would win MVP in that finals if we won, because the first 2 games were like just carried by me. So it's like I don't know. Like, do people think I just lose my skill magically in 3 months or 4 months? It just evaporates, or do people not understand that there's nuance in how teams play and like dynamics in the team? Like, I don't deny that I didn't play well, but I think in summer I was pretty bad. But we were horrible as a team. We were not winning a single scrim. We had to scrim ERL teams. And then in season finals, I think I played pretty okay against Fnatic and SK and G2. We almost went to 5 games. But I think people just have very recent memory, I suppose.
Yeah.
And
so you just need to, when you join a team, you just need to suck. And then at the end, you need to just play like one good best of 5 at the end to give everyone hope. And then your whole career will be different.
I mean, it was kind of same in like 2021 summer, like when Leader and Self-made joined Vitality, right? And we had, first of all, we had 90% win rate in May scrims. We were just winning everything, like against every single team besides Fnatic, who were 50-50 with. And then we like hit a rough patch, and then we made playoffs, and we had to play Fnatic because they also lost strict.
Yeah.
And they actually made it to finals, by the way. And we lost 2-3. And me and Labrov kind of got smashed in that best of 5, I'm not gonna lie, but Fnatic bot lane was counter-picking every game, and map splitting, and Niski was playing TF, and Bwipo was pathing bot every game while we camped. We camped top, and then my top laner died 1v1. But like, I'm actually not trying to.
Okay,
like,
all right.
I'm legit not trying to flame though, because
yeah, because it's just what happened. He did just die 1v1. Like, what can you do about that?
Besides Fnatic bot lane, I think me and Labrov were really like doing really good that split already. Fnatic bot lane was the one that gave us the most problems for sure, like Healy upset. But I don't think it was only Healy upset, to be completely honest. Like, that team was very made around playing around them, and in all honesty, my team was very like, you know, they were kind of, everybody was kind of playing for themselves. But then after that best of 5, people just thought again that I'm the worst player ever. But we made playoffs again after I joined the roster, while in you know. But people, and then I had to play academy, obviously. And in the summer of before, like summer 2022, when I was in academy, I went, like, I don't really care about saying this. I played Tryouts, and I literally went 10-0 in the games, and we actually had to pause because the AD carry I was shouting against got so upset that he thought he would be benched, so they had to pause the tryout for 3 hours.
Wait, can you say who it was? Was this the Xmati? You're talking about Xmati in main team?
Yes.
Okay.
So, like, I don't really care anymore at the point I'm at, honestly, because I think something should be known. And literally everybody in the roster wanted me to play, and they said that they were focusing more on the academy than the main roster, and I got told to my face that the maximum we could get is 8th place if we put me and Limit into the roster. Like, that's what Grabs told me, and I told him I disagree. And I was on okay terms with Grabs a year later, and I know some of it was probably out of his hands, but to me it's absurd that the whole roster wants me to be promoted, and I got 10-0 win-loss. And the reasoning was, I was told that we were focusing the enemy bot lane too much because we were diving them every game level 3, like with jungle. And I told them, but they're in a position to get over every game. What do you want me to do? you want me to not win 2v2? Then they will just say, oh, you're not winning enough. So obviously, I think the conclusion is, when people have an agenda in mind, they will justify it any way they want, right? They will not change their mind. But everybody in that roster knew that I deserved to play. That's why that roster went 10th place instantly after being out.
Damn.
I mean, I'm not even like I really am not.
I was a huge everyone was a huge BDS flamer in that.
Yeah, like to me it was just I just hate it when somebody tells me what my result will be, because you cannot see into the future. And I already took a roster that nobody said will be in playoffs to playoffs. So at least let me try. But they did give me a chance the next year, right? So they did keep their promise, which I'm thankful for. Like, I can't just flame BDS because obviously, like, they did give me 2 years contract in LEC, which is more than most players get. But I just felt like, I guess it was their first year, so they weren't really 100% sure how to do the management stuff. But that roster was doomed from the start because people didn't even want to play with each other in summer. So
winter has arrived, but don't panic. It's not a bad thing. It's an excuse to cancel all plans and slap on your Turtle Beach headset and game until the sun finally decides to come back. For a marathon winter gaming session, you're going to want the world's most comfortable headset with superhuman hearing technology. Turtle Beach's new Gen 3 Stealth 700 headset picks up so much crystal clear sound, it's basically cheating. Best of all, the Stealth 700 has the industry's first ever cross-play dual wireless transmitter system. That means you can seamlessly switch between your consoles and your PC with the click of a button. And it gets even better. While being connected to your console, the Stealth 700 can connect with your phone for music streaming or taking calls. I've been using these Turtle Beach headsets for a while now, and the thing that I love the most about them is the 80-hour battery life. I'm somebody who normally slacks off when it comes to plugging in my headset, charging it, and it feels like my headset pretty much never goes out of battery. So 80-hour battery life using your Turtle Beach headset. It's that time to spend the Christmas money that you got this Christmas on something you actually love. Head to turtlebeach.com and use code TSD for 10% off your entire order. That's 10% off your entire order at turtlebeach.com with promo code TSD.
and then and then there was the BDS roster of 2023, I guess.
No, I mean, let's just ride with it. Fuck the Vitality era. Like, I feel like you're already like down to go to the BDS time. So let's just talk about this BDS time, because so this is the 2023. You get promoted to the main roster. The roster is essentially everyone who was in BDS Academy already. It was you, Adam, who was in BDS Academy with you, Sheo, who was in BDS Academy with you, and then Labrov comes over from Vitality after that like bad Vitality split, where people just thought that Vitality was just a doomed super team that just failed. At this point, Labrov had not experienced like any success in his career. He was kind of like solo queue merchant. Every time he was in competitive, he never got any results. Like. So people didn't think very highly of him. This was kind of like a downgrade for him, where he was getting shots in he got this Vitality shot in this super team where he was supposed to be an X Factor. Didn't live up to what people wanted out of him. Then you join this roster, and the expectations for this roster were literally 10th place. Like the 2023 roster was literally 10th place. Yes. I got called, and I remember this distinctly because I did a tier list, right? And I put you guys 8th place. And I got flamed for putting you guys 8th place because you're obviously my friend. So people were like, oh, Crownie's your friend, so you have them 8th place. But really, like, we all know they're going to be 10th place. They're playing with their academy roster. We saw like Adam play the year before. He was bad. That was probably his worst split ever, was that 2022 spring split, I believe, where he was just like, there was one game. I don't know if you guys remember the Broken Blade game. The Aurelia game versus Broken Blade. Oh, versus Jace. Oh, man, he had some like real stinkers. So everyone thought you guys were going to suck, and you guys didn't suck at all. And actually, the way that you guys played was pretty unique. Like, the way that you guys were playing was heavily through Drakes. You guys had probably some of the best setups out of all teams in the LEC. Before we get into like the drama and stuff that happened later on in the year, how did you guys develop this style? Because it seems like you guys came in and were had a very definitive style on how you guys were going to play that other teams didn't seem like they were able to match. You guys would play every single Drake. You guys had really good setups. You were there on time. How did this like BDS style come to be?
I mean, I sort of like when we started screaming in December, the only team that had winning record against us was G2, and we were even taking games of them. And I think me and Labrov got super good at range matchups because the meta was, I don't know if you remember, it was Ashe and Heimerdinger.
Like Heimer, yep.
Yeah, Heimerdinger was super broken, and it was Lucian Nami, and Ashe support was super OP.
And I think Yuumi was coming in at that point. That's when Yuumi was like really broken.
Like that was a bit later. That was like spring, but winter was like fully like Heimer super broken, Ashe support super broken. People start playing Jhin support as an answer to Heimer. Like all of those like. Range, because I don't know.
Because Cario was playing it in T1 and
Beryl at Worlds, I think, like Beryl
played Heimer.
So Heimer was super OP, and we got really good at the range matchups. I mean, because me and Labrov would just talk about the lane pretty much every time, and it was the same in 2021. Like we would just review lanes, which is what I heard the Healy upset did a lot too, which makes sense to me. But I heard some people didn't do. In other teams, but so like we got good at it, and in December, like we were actually doing good in scrims. Like our macro, like we were doing some things wrong. I'm not saying we're insane, like some sideline play and stuff, but I feel like we had a good baseline, and I feel like a lot of LEC teams downgraded. Like some rosters just had like glaring weaknesses, and I remember like joining back, and I was like, this isn't like the LEC I played in 2019, 2020, where in like if you look at the 2020 summer split where I made playoffs, if you go check the rosters of that split.
Crazy split. That was the best split in LEC history. Like if you look at competitiveness, the Origin team that got 10th was like 6 and 12 or something.
Yes,
or
we made it with 9-9 or something, and the rosters was like Rogue was Inspired, Hans, Larsen, Vander, and Finn or something, and or Odamne, I don't remember exactly. And then Fnatic was like Nemesis, Self-made, Healy, Buipo, Reckless, insane roster. G2 roster was G2 roster, like the famous G2 roster. Then you had Mad Lions that I think ended up. I think G2 won the split. I don't remember anymore.
G2 won the split. Mad Lions was the roster. Like they kind of played a little bit worse in summer, but they were the team that had like Shadow on it, Arome.
Who did? They were second or something. They were really good when they came in, or like in spring.
They beat G2 in spring.
Yes, they beat G2. They were the only team to like beat a best of 5 and stuff. And then you had the Schalke Miracle Run. So those are like who they won like 10 games
with
in a row.
God Gilius.
Yes, and they were. I think Odamne, Abedage were like I was playing against like the Shine Rookie in scrims, you know. Like, and then we were like 6th place. So and if you look at the win chance,
you remember who 7th place was?
Vitality. Yeah, Vitality.
He owns you right now.
Who owns me? Wasn't it Vitality?
The seventh place team, the team that didn't make playoffs.
Yeah, it was Vitality.
I thought it was Excel. No,
it was Excel. Maybe it was.
Let me see. Let me go back. Okay,
I thought Excel was the year before. I think
it was Vitality. In my memory, it was Vitality, but I could be wrong. I just know that we're all 9-9. It was like you went 6th place with 9-9, which is like.
Yeah. Let's see. Summer. Yeah. So XL was 7th.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're 8 and 10.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Vitality was 7 and 11. Misfits was 7 and 11. Origin was 6 and 12. You guys tried to gaslight me, man. What the fuck?
The thing is, it's hard because the exact thing happened the previous year.
Every summer, yes. in the previous year, we played tiebreaker and we lost to Vitality. Like when Yamato was good, like we lost like tiebreaker. It was again like last game of the split decided it. It was 18 games, by the way. It was not a 9-game split. You played 18 games, and so it was not like it was harder, you know. And there was a break in between that switched patches and stuff. But like I remember thinking in 2023 winter, like I remember talking to Labrov. I was like, I don't think the level is the same that it was, and he like agreed. And we just had good fundamentals. Like we drafted well most of the time, I would say. Like we had like good, like for example, like in spring we just abused Maokai every game because it was the most broken champion like in the game. Like I remember saying my coaches wanted first pick Zeri against Vitality. They were like, oh yeah, your Zeri is really good. Yeah, you did pentakill, whatever. And I said, but no, just first pick Maokai, and I would play Jinx into Zeri. And Bob probably doesn't play Maokai, and we just first pick Maokai. It's the most broken champ in the game by far. And I think we just had like clear plans because, for example, it was also Lucian Nami in spring, right? I kind of skipped over winter, but I think in winter, like we choked in the groups. We got like Astralis, G2, Mad. I think that was our group. It was kind of hard actually, but we choked against Astralis. But I don't think we would have beaten G2 or Mad anyway because they ended up going to finals in winter, I believe. But I think me and Labrov were very good at playing the matchups, and our top side was doing good. I think like Nuke, Adam, and Sheo. Like Sheo developed pretty fast, and Nuke and Adam played pretty well. I would say. I think we just collapsed in best of threes, and then in spring, I think we just had perfect meta read. For example, whole Europe was struggling playing Lucian Nami, losing like 0-8, and I remember saying to Labrov, but I think we should just play Zeri Lulu. Just go even. Nobody will pressure. Nobody will pressure you, dash on you on mid waves. We just outscale, and we just did, and we collected like, I think like 10 wins on Zeri or something, while people were still trying to make Lucian work. And then I think I always had a clear idea of how I wanted to play. It was the same like it was Jinx Aphelios. Like I remember telling Labrov, like it was like still a regular split, and I told him I think playoffs will be Jinx Aphelios meta because last year was exactly the same. In 2022, if you check Spring, like MSI and stuff, it was Jinx Aphelios.
Yeah.
And I told him I think he's gonna circle back to it because metas in League are always very circular. Because, for example, Varus Ashe is OP like Winter, then they nerf the lane bullies. So if you nerf the lane bullies, the hyper carries come in, and it's like kind of like that. And I predicted it correctly, and we just played like 2 frontline team comps with like Nuke on Azir. Like he was winning every game on Azir, doing really well, while teams were like really trying to like. If you check like Vitality against us, that best of 5, like they were playing like Sylas, Sejuani, like Akshan.
Was that the one where they played Akshan? Yeah, where they played Akshan and just got completely fisted.
And we have like Maokai, Jinx, Azir, and I'm like, but guys, like, just do every dragon. Like, just win the game. Like, just make it simple, you know. Of course, this strategy is not like it will not. Eventually, it will break when people are better at side laning. For example, in this meta right now, in grab meta, it's just not gonna work, right? Like Riot shifted the game away from that completely with grabs. But back then, first herald was useless. I was if I play Aphelios and you take first herald and I take your full tower bot, I'm winning the game. So and people still had this like herald obsession because like T1 always took first herald and they took the 2 heralds and then they ended the game in 16 minutes. And I was just, but guys, we're not T1. Like we're not. We don't snowball like LPL teams. Just why are you trying to play that way? You know, you just make it simple for yourself. And yeah, that was our strength, I guess.
I wanted to ask Crownie because from your perspective, do you think that the format in particular, do you think it was perfect for what your strengths are? Yes. How did you guys like figure out like the planning? I'm also I don't know if you can connect that in terms of how Striker also worked together with you.
Yeah, for sure. It was a very positive thing for us, I think, because first of all, there was way more pressure on the other rosters to perform, right? Like the Fnatic roster that ended up doing badly, like a few splits, and they ended up like they do bad 9 games, they just changed something. We had no pressure on us, and we had a good idea of what we wanted to do. And our playstyle is very like best of 1 proof. Or sorry, like good for best of 1s because you're just gonna pick scaling and you're gonna be on the dragon and you're just gonna fight, right? So it's like it's harder to mess up than like some. I remember like Vitality used to have some crazy 5k, 6k, 7k leads that they just threw. And in scrims they were dominating everyone, you know, with Bo and stuff. But I think people realize that scrims and stage are different. I mean, every pro player knows this, you know. But I think we had a very good and stable strategy. And I swear, after that winter split, like 4 or 5 teams changed their rosters, you know. And we were like 7th place, but we didn't change it because everybody felt like we can do better. I don't think we expected to be 1 game of winning the split, but I mean, that year we ended up making Worlds as 4th seed, which is like more than people expected from us, you know. And I think a large part of that was just we knew what we wanted to draft, we knew what our strengths were, and we just did it. While other teams were like trying to copy Asia, or like you're not. There's maybe like 2 or 3 bot lanes in Europe that can play Lucian Nami, like close to Asia, you know, and they were not like the supports and the AD carries were not on the same teams together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like here now, like G2 Fnatic bot lane can definitely play it, both, but they were not on the same team back then. You know, there was always like one, like for example, like Kaiser wasn't that.
Yeah, Kaiser wasn't good at Nami. Yeah. Like Hilly wasn't that great at Nami either.
Like for example, like the Vitality roster was hurt by the meta switching to ranged for winter spring because Kaiser wasn't that insane on ranged, while Upset wanted to play that style. You know, so I think it was just like a perfect storm of things. I think Labrov was also really good on ranged. Like for example, I think he's really good on rel and stuff too. But I think he was one of the best ranged support players in the league, and that's how I liked playing too. So it was like just a perfect split. But for sure, the other teams what's the word? Underperforming played a big part because in summer, when teams sort of woke up, like I feel like Excel got kind of better. They actually had like a clearer plan.
A recipe, the Maokai
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, I mean they just picked Maokai. Yeah, I mean if you just picked Maokai that year, you're minimum top 4. Yeah, and instead of top 1, like it was actually that.
Shout out Bo.
No, it was
Oh,
literally
yeah.
like so like unfair and easy to play. You just clicked ult and you checked it. Like, it was just unreal broken. But I know Excel was good when they got Abedag and I don't remember who. Limit.
This was jungle, and Limit was into.
Yeah. Limit was already in spring, but in summer
Yeah.
they actually like started being pretty good. And Fnatic got Noah. And I don't remember. Yeah, Fnatic
And
got
they did the
Noah.
Trimby switch as well for Advian.
I mean, Fnatic was like one auto take off in spring of making it out anyway. I think Fnatic was already good in spring. They were just unlucky. But then Fnatic improved too. Like, so then there was like kind of Fnatic XL G2, like that split in summer. We were like,
but think about it, man. If Reckless just auto attacked the Nexus, then you wouldn't have him as your support right now. It's a beautiful butterfly effect where he became your support. The reason you get to play with Reckless is because he didn't auto attack that Nexus.
It's crazy, yes. I mean, I'm happy. I think he's insane, so I'm happy. You know, maybe things were supposed to and like happen that way. But yeah, like I think in summer, like I had this discussion anyway with somebody else. Like I think by summer, teams sort of wake up in the splits. Like you know what I mean? I think winter is always like the level doesn't seem good to me. But I feel like as it approaches summer, teams get better. I know you probably disagreed with that in the past year. Thought that the level wasn't good the whole year.
I feel like that's something I wanted to ask you because that was kind of like the reason why I'm not doing LEC, at least in the beginning of this year, is because I just felt like it became like I mean the reason I used to watch LEC is because I had like some level of hope internationally, and now it's like I'm just hoping for G2 to do well, but the other teams I just don't believe in. Like I just didn't believe this Mad Lions team was good the entire year. I thought that them getting third place was kind of an indictment on all of Europe. And the format, to be honest. But I mean, like when I'm looking at the other teams, they just don't look like there is that level of precision that we used to have with, you know, old Fnatic and G2 back in 2020. Did you feel like the level was declining?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, okay, so in 2020, in 2019, G2 was dominating scrims too. In 2019, they had like 90% win rate. I'm sure Yamato remembers. Like nobody could beat them in spring. In summer, I think Fnatic was also really good. But in 2020, like there was many good rosters. Like I think there was many good rosters, but in 2023 I felt like G2 was by far the best in scrims. Like I don't think we won a single scrim set. We took games but never won a single scrim set. And then Fnatic in summer was pretty good, but other than that, Mad Lions had like 80%, 20% win rate in winter. They made finals. I mean, you guys talked to Karzi, right? Then in spring they were losing, then they won the split. So it felt very random. I think this format for sure impacted it because I think if some of the teams, like if Fnatic of spring or winter had more time, like 18 games, I'm sure they would do better. Or some of the other teams, or Excel maybe, you know. But the format made people panic so fast. I mean, it happened with Yamato last year too, right? You play 9 games, and then people just make their decisions of the rest of the year off of 9 games. Like, bro, but what if some people are sick? You can't scrim. What if you have bad meta read 1 week? That's 3 games already. Or I don't know, like if it's a super week, that's 1/3 of the games. And then your whole split hinges off of a best of 1 at the end because we only made summer like groups, which is top 8 by the way, because we beat Vitality. And if we lost that, we would be where Vitality was, which was like 9th place in the end. So it's like, so we almost won the split, and we were like maybe 2 team fights off of not even making it further because the format was so weird. Like the summer weighed so heavily. Like summer was everything pretty much, because Excel was like 9th, 2nd, and they made or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Like so it's like for sure I think the format was, people were excited for it because it's new and it's best of 1s and it's high stakes. And then 3 months in, people are like, holy shit, this sucks. Like there's massive stress on everyone because if you have a bad split, you're out of your job, and the games are just so random. And yeah, it definitely hurt the league in the long run. I think like that format, because it just made everyone constantly do roster changes. Because in 2019, 2020, 2021, there was roster changes, but they were between spring and summer, which is like generally like a 1.5 month break.
Mhm.
But bro, like the winter spring break was like 10 days or something, and then the rosters already changed. So I think it impacted LEC badly, but I think some of the rosters this year are better than last year, though.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I
For
think there's
sure,
like
yeah.
4 to 5 pretty solid teams, I would say.
And the format is also better, like at least in spring. Like I think that like the long drawn out formats, like as you mentioned yourself, it's like having 18 games in a split. It gave a lot of teams time to ramp up. And I think it's easy sometimes to underestimate like kind of a cycle of like if you have like the players that are usually like good in the league, it was very often that like a strong team started off very like slow. And then they kind of ramped up and then they figured things out. I think like Fnatic 2020 was such a good example where they almost like, they were like 9-9. They almost didn't make it, right? It was like the Soraka Graves. Like, well, then they ramped up and then they like played like the Hecarim and the Evelyn in the playoff, right? And then suddenly...
they beat best of 5 like Rogue. They were like finals. They beat G2 in upper. Yeah, like, I mean, I'm sure you all know because you've played League for so long, like, it can easily happen that you have the wrong read on the meta. For example, Vitality in summer was stomping every scrim. They were like so good, and they're playing like Kindred or something. And then Riot was like, nope, Maokai is still broken. Like, and they played their first week, and they had a really hard schedule. I think they played like G2 or like some hard teams, and they went like 0-2 or 0-3. And then again, they just spiraled down. But in scrims for the like, I don't know, 3 weeks before the split, they were like the best team almost. And they were for sure skilled enough to make like top, I don't know, 4 or 5, whatever, maybe higher. But if you have one bad week, it ruins 3 weeks of your practice because your meta read completely changes, and you only have like 4 days to adapt, or I don't remember how many, like 5 days max, and it completely ruins everything. And it happened to so many teams. And yeah, that's what you guys mentioned about Fnatic is true, because they would always start badly, but in 2019, 2020, there was even a break between week 4 and 5 for Rift Rivals. So you actually played like 10 or 11 weeks of a split. That's a long time, right? That's like 3 months of practice instead of like, how much is one split? 3 weeks?
Like 3 weeks of BO1s and then the playoffs. So 6 weeks
like,
in total.
Let's say like
6
4
weeks total.
Yeah, but without playoffs and practice, like 4 or 5 weeks max. You have literally doubled the weeks to practice and to like adapt, and not to mention it's 18 games, right? So it's like if you are in a bad spot, you can still just have a 2 weeks and you're back. But in this best of ones, if you have one bad week, if you go 0-3, it's not looking good, or like if you're 0-4, you have to start winning, and it impacted so many teams psychologically for sure.
And just to add more context, right? It's like playing Super Weeks. It's like you have 2 scrim days pretty much. It's like you have a break day because after Super Weeks, and then it's like playing 1 BO1 takes like 5-6 hours of your day. Yep. So it's like you are completely like occupied. It's like preparing for the split was almost as if you are preparing for a tournament rather than something else. It's like similar to Worlds in a way, like you're just back up against the wall constantly, unless, sure, there's situations where you get breathing room, like where you can guarantee yourself top 8, and I think that would be like the counter argument, but sometimes you misstep, and that's something that can happen to most teams. I think like the teams, like maybe the top 3 teams are always going to like be able to grind out wins in the end, but I think to also circle back to something that started a little bit of a downtrend in my mind. I don't know if you guys agree, because I'm kind of conflicted with this thought, because 2021, I did think Mad Lions did decently, like internationally, like looking at their performance. But ever since there was the breakup of the Fnatic that I inherited, where like there was this whole battle about AD carries. Like there was like everyone was just waiting for the decision of like Reckless, the 2020 off season, and then Reckless decided to join G2. and then we were struggling, G2 was struggling, and then the torchbearers, that was Mad Lions. I feel like that also kind of started kind of a downtrend because the orgs in a way needed to rebuild. The two orgs that kept up the pace and kind of made everyone better for such a long time. But I'm conflicted because Mad Lions was like decent internationally. So I'm curious about what you guys think in terms of what the level was back then, because we're talking about like the format. But was this like a pivotal point in you guys' mind in terms of, let's say, LAC downtrending in terms of performance?
I think from my perspective, when I think about that Mad Lions roster, it's like they had decent performances, I guess, internationally. But what is really like if we actually contextualize what is like a decent performance in that day and age, like a decent performance is you make it to MSI, you go 2-3 to Dom 1, so you lose a best of 5, but you like make it kind of competitive. And that was honestly the worst iteration of that Dom 1 that we saw. Like that was when, if you remember the games, that was when Beryl was sprinting it like every fucking game. He's just like running it down, and they don't win that series. And then, you know, they go to Worlds and they beat like a 4th seed LPL or I think they won like a tiebreaker or something in order
LNG,
to they beat LNG. They do it in like a tiebreaker fashion and sneak into playoffs and go and get 3-0'd. So it's like, for me, when I contextualize that, I feel like there's a lot of these like misses where it looks competitive, but when I look back on it, I'm like, I don't actually believe that team was internationally competitive. I just believe that they like were able to rise to the moment. It's like this FlyQuest team versus Gen.G, right? Sure, they looked good versus Gen.G, and people are going to celebrate the fact that they lost in a close way to Gen.G. But let's say they played like a best of 5 versus other teams that were in quarterfinals. LNG, for example, who lost this year. Do I think that this FlyQuest team has an advantage over LNG? No, I think LNG is like, I would bet on LNG in that situation. I would bet on Hama Life in that situation. I would bet on top esports to beat them. So it's like, I don't know how to really rate these performances where you end up losing, but you look kind of good. It's nice in the moment, but for me, I don't really give credit until you actually are able to beat one of these Asian teams in a best of 5.
I mean, yeah, I think the 2021 year made, like, as you said, as Yamato said, like G2 and Fnatic rebuild, because, I mean, rebuild, like G2 rebuilt in 2022, right? And I think I didn't play LEC in 2022, but I don't think people expected the G2 roster to win with like Flacked and then the Rogue roster in summer.
Yeah.
So I think maybe the level started dropping then, but I did not play, so I can't. I mean, we scrimmed G2 in summer with Academy, some games, but that's never a good.
I mean, you went 10-0 versus Maddie every game, so you got to see the level of some LEC teams at least.
I mean, like I think people in 2022 already started saying that the level was a bit lower, but for example, the Fnatic roster that year was pretty good. I think, like the Yamato coach, like I think that was like. I think people were surprised that G2 won with like Flacked Targamas, for example, right?
I can add on the G2 topic just to chime in, is that they were already practicing when we were at Worlds the previous year. So they started giga early, and on the other side, it's like we had like contract issues and things that held us back from practicing, where we started 1 week. And I think like carrying that momentum can be like super impactful. And I think that's like a really, really good thing that G2 did, because I think no one expected them to be like that good. I think BB like performed super well. Jankos was fantastic, but I think when I looked at that bot lane, I didn't like have any expectations. And in the end, I think looking at Summer, it kind of showed itself, right? Because you couldn't play or any of the range matchups, right?
Yes, of course. It went to Lucian, Nami, Sivir, Yumi, Zeri, and yeah, for sure. I mean, from watching that, I felt like, I mean, I expected like Fnatic to win probably, and then in Summer G2 when Rogue won, but still, like, I think the rosters of the previous years that won the splits felt stronger, you know, player-wise, like 2019, 2020, 2021, like, if you just look at, like, name-wise, you know, and I guess that fed even more into the, like, 2023, like, try to, like, put more rookies and build more around, like, team synergy over, like, you know, superstars and stuff. Besides G2, obviously, who just probably built a roster to win everything. But I think, yeah. And then combined, because 2022 was still the old format, I think. if I remember correctly.
What's your general perspective on like the rookie obsession in LEC? Because I think that rookies obviously add stuff, but it feels like there was a point where it stopped being that rookies were scouted for very specific qualities that they had, and they were just brought up because like being a rookie gave them the unlimited potential in GM's minds, where it's like, oh, because this guy's a rookie, like his ceiling could be endless. Whereas like, his ceiling could be caps. That's what I heard. I don't know how many times I heard that this mid laner was going to be the next caps in the last 4 or 5 years when covering LEC. I heard this from, and just behind the scenes, everyone who would talk to me, this guy is the next caps, this guy is the next caps, this guy is the next caps. People said this so many times, and it felt like at a point the obsession stopped being like, let's get rookies that fill a certain void. Where, for example, a rookie that I'm thinking of that I thought was brought up in a really good way was Elyoya. Elyoya was said, hey, this guy has like very good early game shot calling. This is some type of direction that we need within Mad Lions. Him replacing Shadow is going to be like, Shadow didn't do bad. He was good mechanically, but we need this specific quality that this rookie possesses, and that's going to elevate our team. I felt like at some point it stopped being like scouting for qualities and rather just scouting for like, this guy is just a rookie who knows how good he could be. His mechanics look fine. Like there's so many, when you go back and you start thinking about how many rookies were churned by the LEC, like I could just go on and on. It's like Chekolad, Schlag. I mean, you played with Zaze. Like there's so many different ones.
Bro, we just pick up a player and my GMs are telling me this guy can be like top 3 mid, always top 3. They always say top 3. Like, okay, like what do you mean top 3? Like how do you even rank that? Like,
I mean, I could be top 3 as well. Like, I'm not going to be, but I could be, Like,
we don't even know. You never played LEC, Dom. So
yeah, exactly. I could be a top 3 mid laner. Who knows?
There's always this talk of potential, which is the most like arbitrary, useless word of all time because it means nothing in the end. Like, what does this even mean? Potential, like, and everybody can be the next player. And
potential to me means that this player hasn't proven that he's bad yet. So he could be bad or good. Like,
for example,
kind of like how I view it.
Jackis is a player that got picked up and actually ended up like being good, right? But I think, as I said, connected to 2021, when all the super big rosters didn't do that well at Worlds, and teams prefer to spend less, and you can pay rookies less, obviously, because they would rather gamble on rookies than on people who have like established arrogant personalities, which is like similar to what happened in Heretics or with Perks and stuff, and they just took Zweiru or like Frescoe from Mad. Like, people didn't actually believe they were LEC level, right? Like, well, Mad Lions just gave him a chance because he was in the academy and he had pre-existing synergy. And what bothers me is that the way teams speak is like, yeah, we will not change the players, and this is a long-term project, and then they obviously change him when he doesn't perform. And I think it's fine to change people when they don't perform, but I hate the fake idea of like, oh, we're in it for the long run, like this is a long term. I mean, just say like, if somebody doesn't match our expectations, we'll just change them. In the end, it's like like business or whatever, right? You want to call it. But I think a large part of the rookies being picked up, and every year I would just see like GMs and coaches make like lists of 10 players in ERLs that could easily play LEC. This guy could easily play LEC. This guy could easily play LEC. Like, so what? There's like actually 70 LEC. Like, there's like, 70 players per each role or what? That's not how it works, If you have to actually gauge people correctly, because nowadays I just see every split there's new players who will apparently like play in LEC, But there's only 10 spots. You don't have infinite spots in LEC. So, as I said, I think it was part of the like salaries being reduced and stuff, and teams moving more towards the model of like GMs having more control. Because for sure, 2019, 2020, 2021 was very heavily star player focused in Europe, I think, when G2 was playing so well, and Fnatic and stuff. But you could see the shift now. I think even now, there's a lot of teams like GMs and coaches that have a large say in rosters, which, I mean, it can be good or bad. It left to be seen, I guess, but it's just for sure a change from what it was before.
Something to add too, just on like to just compare how LEC has done it in the last couple of years in comparison to like the LCK. I feel like there's a clear passing of the torch. You know, it's like there's a deep respect for players that have like performed,
Yes.
and there is a clear kind of context to a rookie. You want him to become a very, very strong veteran, and as exactly as Dom you put it, like fill a very specific like maybe the player that you need isn't on the market, so you're trying to shape a player that has characteristics that will be able to go in that direction. Like usually potential, like people measure it by just seeing like how good someone is mechanically, right? I think that's usually like the eye test what people apply. But to circle back to the point that I'm making is, in the LCK, bro, like the rookies coming in, it's like maybe in the bottom 2-3 teams, maybe it's like shifting around, they're testing players. But then you have like the usual suspects. It's like even a player that like Lucid was super, super hyped.
Yeah.
And when he finally was elevated to that spot, he was given a lot of time, because in the beginning, he was kind of like running it for Damwon. And then like he ramped up in this first playoffs, started playing Lee Sin, found his confidence, and then he started like getting better and better. And this was a player that was like insanely like hyped, but even that transition was like difficult, but he was given that time, because like playing in the top league is very, very different from playing in ERLs, and you need like an adjustment period because there's just so many like stimuli happening at the same time. And I think there's definitely like players that were thrown to the wayside at the wrong time, and they were not appreciated at the wrong time, because usually like what you hope for is that eventually those players transition into coaching roles too. Like now you see the legends are coaching. Like you look at the list, it's like you have coaches that have like very successful careers, but then you see like Mata is there. Piglet is coaching T1 Academy, the legend, you know, like you see that there's a passing of the torch.
I'm surprised he got a job. I think the last time he coached, I think he lost like, I don't know, like 13 games in a row. That was his last coaching stint.
Yeah, like in Korea, it's very player. Like I mean, in the West, it's mostly like Nugdok, Mifi, who are like players before, but there's not many like player coaches yet. But in Korea, it's very like common, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that it's just because in Korea, it seems like that is like the desirable job over being a streamer. Where in the West, it's always just been that like the people that would be qualified that like talking about the game a lot just end up being streamers rather than coaches. It just seems like that is just a better career path for people when it comes to like, you know, how much money you make and then also your lifestyle and everything.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's for sure a good point. I agree with that.
Yeah. So I wanted to, I guess, talk about the rookie point. The question I was going to ask you was, do you think that this is something that ended up hurting your career, that like people would rather just play with like a rookie just for the sake that he's a rookie over you because they think that, oh, this rookie has the potential to be top 3, and like they just view you as like, oh, I mean, he'll be good in certain metas, he's good at hyper carries, like, you know, whatever, they have a preconceived notion of how you're going to play?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, probably part of it was my soccer reputation and stuff, but I think, I mean, in BDS I got changed because there was like argument at Worlds, or like they felt like, I mean, the reasoning I got told was that I was not clicking good enough in the game from summer onwards, and my director, who hasn't played a single game of League, told me my Ezreal wasn't good enough, pretty much. Which, I mean, how can you gauge it if it's from if coaches tell you that, you know, about like Q flash on Ezreal or something?
Yeah.
I mean, every single player has gone through this, you know. I mean, I liked him as a person, but it just felt weird to me that, you know, I get told I'm not clicking well enough, like in game, like that I did not click well enough. And then I asked them, like, so if we want the split and I was MVP, would you change me 4 months later? And they said, yeah, probably yes, which is obviously bullshit, right? I hope we can. Yeah. I hope we can agree with that. That obviously, if I was MVP while having the most first All Pro votes while carrying most games, I would not be changed 4 months later. But obviously, that's how it is. You know, people are very like, they only remember recent things, and I think I definitely made a lot of mistakes in summer. Like I wasn't as close with Labrov anymore. Like we didn't talk that much about the game. Like we had different views. Like he thought Zaya was super OP, and it should just be perma abused. And I thought like, no, in LPL they like triple flank it every fight. and it can't, like, it can only ult once, and the Ahri and the fucking, I don't know what they played. They played a lot of Ahri in jungle, in mid,
Yeah, like-
sorry. I don't
Yeah, it's like
remember what
Ari Vi meta and stuff like this.
Jax. Ahri Jax is what they played every game. And if you get double flanked and you can only ult one time, like, you're just gonna die. But of course,
But no one can play Jax in the LEC.
yes, in Europe, every jungler goes into Xayah Feathers, gets like rooted, and they're like, fuck, this champ is so OP. But I felt like, okay, if you play range into Xayah, you know, like you can. So we had like a bit different views of the game in summer, which is my mistake, because when the team is doing badly, which we were, because probably we like had bad mental from finals or something, and like the year felt a bit long, you know. You need to make sure that you're good with your like duo partner. I mean, when you're playing AD carry, but let's say you're playing mid lane, like you have to make sure you are playing good with your jungler, or that you're playing good individually, right? And I think I kind of gave up on that, or not. I didn't give up on that, but I didn't do as good of a job as I should have. So we had very many disagreements in the whole team, like from summer onwards, and at Worlds it got even worse. So I think that probably negatively impacted my view in the team. But for example, before Worlds, I was told that they want the situation to go back like it was in spring, where I was by far the best player in the team and that I'm leading everyone. That's what I was told by the director. And I said, yeah, but you know, there's like external factors, right? It's like, it's not only up to me to perform that way. Like, other people get better, we can get worse. The meta is different. Like there's like probably like 15 factors minimum, right? So, and then at Worlds we ended up playing like a different way. But yeah, that's, and then like 1 week later I was benched. You know, literally,
Yeah.
like I came home, and I already knew there was some fishy business happening, because I got asked in my yearly debrief if I would be fine playing with someone in the team, and I said, yeah, of course. I mean, I think we have a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I think it was
You
bad
want to
work.
tell the people who this person was and
I
like
think
where the
everybody
conflict
can
lies?
read between the lines.
All right.
I mean, like, I got into an argument at Worlds where I got called a dogshit passenger by one of my teammates.
Okay.
Because we were discussing drafts against Damon.
Does this player play
yeah,
like?
I will give you context in a second. Yeah.
Okay.
So we were. His opinion was we need to triple ban 80 carries against Death, and my opinion was we cannot leave Rumble open because it was the best top laner on the patch for a few months, and we disagreed. And I got called a dogshit passenger at Worlds, and I made a remark that the game is different if you play with no teleport in the top side of the map. And then there was like an argument.
Well, could you, Crownie? No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
I probably should not have even said anything, but I think my position in the team was sealed at that point. I think I would have been changed regardless. But it's like I should probably not have said anything back, because at that point, you know, there's no point. But as I was saying, like, I think perspectives got a bit warped at that Worlds, and we had a very successful, like, we made planes playing heavily for top lane, and I don't deny that Adam was very good at that, you know. But on the flip side, we did very well in spring playing around me, right? And I did not have the same reaction that happened at Worlds after spring finals. So it was a bit of a surprise to me that was the conclusion. But the atmosphere, I think everybody I have talked to from the West told me that when you're at Worlds and you're losing scrims against Asian teams, it can get very heated when you're stuck in a small room and next to each other. I was playing like 17 hours of League a day, barely sleeping. Like, everybody just wanted to go. Like, some of my teammates were happy we got Damon because, and me and Labrov
then you can go home fast.
Yeah, me and Labrov were like, but we want to play someone else, so we're in the tournament longer. Like, you know, and they're like, no, but that's not really relevant. But like, I felt like, but it already started happening in Worlds Plains, because when I was in the bathroom and I came back into the room and there was a coach and a player were talking about banning champions on my role from Artemis was his name, because he carried the game on Kaisa, I think, that we completely inted into him like 15 times. and they were discussing my bans for me, which we never did in the whole year, right? In the whole year, when we did spring, when we were one game of winning, I had the highest input on my role by far. Like, I would just tell them, no, don't pick Zeri. Give Zeri, I would pick Jinx. Give Aphelios into Jinx. Play Aphelios Trash into Jinx, whatever. So, when people are in my absence talking about my role at Worlds, I know something a bit wrong already, right? But so my position in the team got a bit worse, and it's for sure partially my fault. Like, again, if I had a better summer, I think it would be different. But I think I laughed about it with my dad, because I think if we actually didn't make playoffs in summer, I would have a higher chance of being on BDS if we didn't make Worlds than if we did.
100%.
Because then there would only be the memory of summer, spring, where spring I was the best player, I guess. I think Labrov was the best player in my opinion. Like, I think he was the best player on that roster anyway. But yeah, I think it actually negatively impacted me. So
yeah, so normally, like, if you're doing well in LEC, you should try to lose as fast as possible to just keep your value high.
Yeah,
the less games you play, the higher your value.
I don't know. It was crazy to me that was the case. I think that was actually the case. But yeah, again, like, I felt like it was very sudden, and I was totally fine with playing with the same players. Like, for sure we had issues and stuff, but I was very willing to keep playing. But when my manager tells me, like, asks me that question, it means that something else was said from the other side, right? Like, I can put two and two together. Like, I'm not dumb. Because why is it even getting brought up if it's not an issue, right? Like, it's so obvious. So I knew, like, okay, it's looking a bit iffy, and then I got benched, and then people, like, some people were very, like, surprised. Like, you guys were kind of vocal about it, that it was a bit weird. But some people were saying that I was, like, the worst AD carry because I had a bad Worlds and stuff. And again, it circles back to the point that IWillDominate made, that, like, the opinion on me just fucking oscillates, like, up and down constantly. Like, and there's people who were mega praising me in spring. I remember reading them. They were saying I'm so insane. 3 months later, I'm the worst player on the, like, by far. How can that happen? You know, you don't lose all of your skill. Of course, there's external factors, but again, like, I'm partially to blame, because I think Labrov was, like, very good. You know, like, I think people finally saw his worth, I guess, after these years, after, like, 2 more years playing, or no, 1 more year. So he was, like, a big part of why I looked good. But obviously, I think I had a decent part in it myself too. Yeah.
You know, it's crazy to think about, you know, because, like, bringing back the context of that year, like, even looking at the best of 5 where you guys lost against Mad Lions in that final, it's like where with the bot lane, you guys were playing a bot lane heavy meta, like, just looking at how Adam was playing in that series as a person, like, this was like level 5 Malphite roaming.
Yeah, I mean, you should have told them to be a passenger. You should have said, hey, bro, if you were a passenger, we would be LEC champions right now, as opposed to roaming around the map and trying to get active level 5 with the Doran's ring.
Yeah, I mean, I was close to saying something back, but I controlled myself there. But I think if people actually go watch the final, we were 2-0 up, and game 3 we got Zeri Lulu because they were banning, like, Cassio and stuff, because they wanted to ban Nuke, Adam, Comfort. And I was 1k up on Karzi with Zeri, Lulu, Syndra, like, perfect team comp for us. And top was frozen, and I even said at the start of the game that we can give early Drakes, we don't need to fight them. And we tip it to mid tower level 5. And then we lost that game, but I think that game was winnable. But after we lost that game, I knew the final is lost, because we're just out mentally, I think. But it's kind of crazy to think that our only chance was a 3-0. That kind of doesn't make sense. But after that spring, I remember talking to people, and, like, I felt like we can do good, you know. But I also felt like that was the only shot we'll have at winning that year, you know. I think it was a perfect storm of things. And then after we lost season finals to Fnatic 2-3, I believe, I think some, like, management and stuff was very disappointed. But I didn't feel that disappointed, because we were, like, one best of one of not making it. of course you're disappointed because you don't win, right? Because losing always sucks. But we were literally like 2 team fights off of not even being there, and then we went to game 5, and we still made like worlds and stuff. But yeah, I think summer was like, I mean, as the year went on, there was like very, very many different views of how the game should be played. And I think, all styles can work. I mean, we made World playing heavily around top lane, and he was just smurfing on everyone with his champs. But yeah, in the end, I don't know. As you guys said, it's still ironic to me that I would probably still be in LEC if we didn't make Worlds. And it was dumb. So I would play an extra year in LEC.
Bro, that year, like we talked about how crazy the format was, and like Mickey was like clear MVP because I think like he like just performed the entire like fucking year, like regardless if other G2 players were underperforming or not. But I think that like the names that came to mind in terms of like being an MVP for the whole year was yours, and then like people of course also like Jankos for the work he did in Heretics. But other than that, there was like no names for the work that you put in. And it's crazy because we know that community-wise they can't contextualize anything that is going on, and everything is very, very recent-based. But everything that you're saying seems like everyone in decision-making power have that same issue. Because you guys went to Worlds, none of you had the Worlds experience. It's a fucking chaos storm, bro, what you're going through and the emotions you go through, and it's everything very, very new. Like the first time I went to Worlds, bro, I was a piece of shit, like like managing like the boot camp and everything. Like it's tough. It's very, very tough,
I mean, for sure. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, it's just crazy that you have like the beginning of the episode we mentioned, it's like your career is like in terms of decision making where it was at, like it was always so just completely fucked,
I mean, yeah, probably part of it is my personal. I'm sure I'm not doing every interaction perfectly with people. Like, I am sure I have flaws and stuff. But like, I mean, the reason I was told I was changed is because they wanted to win the split and make Worlds the next year, and they didn't win a single split or make Worlds. So it's like, maybe I wasn't the issue, or don't know, maybe I was.
I mean, I think that
Ice
like in a weird way, like Ice playing so well just kind of proved your value, because it's like Ice played. Everyone thinks that Ice played well. Everyone thought that you played well in 2023, and then the results of the team were the same both times,
I mean,
and arguably worse this time because that wasn't a final.
When they lost the best of 5 and didn't make Worlds, I tweeted like, "Wow, that's crazy," something like that, and I got the most amount of hate I have ever gotten in my life. By every single French person. I got death threats saying how much better Ice is than me, and I was just thinking, but they literally finished the exact same place as us, and you can't say that the level was better because everybody.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in arguably, I think one of the weakest splits of LEC
and
of all
Ice was
time.
smurfing pretty much. He played very well in the year.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't know if he's better. I didn't play against him. I can't contextualize him. I think in 2023 I was top 3 in the year. Like I think Hans, Karzi, me, Noah. I don't know how you would put, but the 4 that went to Worlds were the best. And so I was like, So they told me they changed because I wasn't good enough to win the split. When the only split that we came close to winning was purely from like playing around me and bot lane. And then they fail every split and they don't make Worlds.
What were the vibes like within your team? Because I feel like it's always scary when your organization, I know it's like a Swiss organization, but it's essentially French. Like that's like how people view BDS. It's like a French organization, French coach, 3 French players. Is it like scary to be part of an environment like that? Because you feel like, I'm kind of like the odd man out here.
Yeah, I don't want any drama and stuff, but at Worlds, when I'm sitting next to my support and I hear a foreign language spoken in my ear for 2 hours straight, it's not the most pleasant thing in the world. And every team obviously puts rules to not do that. But of course, people naturally gravitate to that. I'm not blaming them for speaking their mother tongue because it's completely normal. Like, if there's like a majority people from a country in the room, unless they're explicitly told to not speak their language, they will do it when they're like stressed or arguing or like having a heated discussion, right? Because that's just how people work. But
It's
it was
comforting.
not. It's comforting, yes, but it was not enforced because, well, my head coach had to take care of a million things at that world, so he wasn't even with us screaming most of the time. He was doing like managerial things. So it's like, of course, groups form and opinions form, and like, of course, it's not the best feeling. I think that's what teams like that suffer. Probably, Perskoy might have went through. I don't want to speak for how Mad Lions was or Koi, sorry, but he was like one of the only like people spoke a different language than him, and it is very easy to get alienated in our environment like that. Or for example, when you have two Koreans on a team and there's like problems, they will
And then you
always
just hear
speak
like
Korean.
Jungle Gapu, and you're like, what the fuck? Like
Pirin and Dreams always, like in review, when Pirin was mad, he was always speaking Korean to Dreams, like in SK 2019, always. And that's like that, as Yamato said, it's comforting. But then it's on people to constantly enforce that to create a sense of like team being together, right? And it for sure, like I was the closest by far with Labrov, you know? I spoke to him by far the most, and like the other three players were probably closer with each other. Again, I think it's normal. They know each other from before. And I probably didn't do a good enough job at, for example, connecting with Sheo, Adam, Nook, because it always like I just didn't know how to approach them. But in the end, it is my responsibility because I did play like the longest, you know. But I was always awkward in these sorts of things, which again probably a flaw of mine. So if I did that better, maybe it would be easier. But I'm not like mad at them for that being the case. Again, I think everybody who has played in a team of a majority language, it's always like that. Eventually, it will revert to that. And in our team, it was like 7 out of like 9 people are French or something, you know, or like 6 out of I don't know, like a really big majority, you know. So obviously, when you're in the living room, most of the time the conversation will be in French, you know, which, I mean, it's okay, but when the year gets long and tensions rise, it can feel a bit alienating. But that's not like the reason I performed bad or anything, right? But I think people would probably understand what I mean, because I would imagine it's the same in work environments when there's people from the same country, like majority.
You know, I wanted to hear from you, Crownie, on because now it's like you explained the BDS situation. It's like the EG situation was fucked too. It's like you joined Vitality in fucking February. It was completely random too. You mentioned the SK business and now like all of this stuff. Like there was a period now where like I remember we were talking. It wasn't certain that like Los Ratones was happening, and this was like a very very big you know, like a hope thing, right?
Yeah,
this was your hope. I wanted to ask you, like in your reflection, looking back at the past and like how the world is very very unfair by nature, and esports is definitely very very unfair. So how did you cope with that? How did you handle that? I imagine now you're at ease, right? It's like you're having a fantastic opportunity, Los Ratones, but in that in between period, what were you going through?
I mean, that's a very good question. I think like I had many periods where I thought I will not play, I'll retire, and this year I was benched. And I mean, Rogue was interested in Spring, and then they almost made playoffs, so they didn't do it. And then I didn't want to go play ERL because I wanted BDS to pay me the money they owe me, you know. Like I didn't want a ERL team to cover half the costs. I felt like it was unfair. So I preferred to sit on my contract, and I'd probably have to play like in an ERL if I didn't get this. And then I got approached in like June, I think, or I don't know, somewhere in summer. And I was like, wow, like this sounds very interesting. You know, I play with Nemesis, who I've known for like 10 years now, almost. Yeah, 10 years. And I think if I actually played LEC this year, I would not be in this Los Ratones team now, because I would not be approached in June, right? So they would just approach somebody else. So it like makes me think that, like, you know, it's a very cliche saying that things happen for a reason and stuff. But after I've seen everything that's happened, it seems like there's periods where I think it's all doomed, or that the period is very hard, and then something happens which gives me hope again. I can't answer to you how I cope with it because I do not cope with it. I'm still extremely surprised, or like it just feels very surreal, or like maybe that's not the correct word. Maybe the correct word is like it's hard to explain. You know what I mean? It's hard to find like reasonings for things happening. It feels like it just happens by coincidence, which is not a good feeling, right? Because then you feel like you don't have control over what happens in your life, which is like then you're just, I don't know. It feels like I'm just like a passenger in my own life. But of course, I'm like very thankful for the opportunity, and I think like this concept of having teams like this, which you guys are probably familiar with, right? Since you're doing something similar, is like I think it can only do good for the scene, and I'm like extremely thankful to Kadril and everyone who is in this project, because like I think the league scene needed something like this because it was getting a bit stale. It's the same for Fearless Draft. I think we're kind of forced to making something like this because when there's only 70 champions played or something at Worlds, like less than half, you need to. And I think people just like seeing organic. What's the word? Teams, when people get the feeling that they got when they were watching TSM in 2012, and of course Yamato and Dom, you both know because you played in teams back then, right? Like you knew how it felt more like a hobby, right? I mean, I don't know how it felt for you guys, but not only like a hobby, it just, for me, it felt like, I remember when I played in some teams, I don't know, 2016 or something. I was paid 200 euros a month. We had no mattress. And I just went there for my summer holidays. And I played League 18 hours a day. And we had no plates. And we ate like chicken out of the fucking like box we bought. You know what I mean? It felt very like raw. Yep. You know what I mean? Like just League. And I think these projects return a part of that. Because it doesn't feel so like manufactured as some of the LEC does now, I guess. It's like you get a more intimate look into how teams work and how they resolve issues and how they deal with frustration. And I guess that's what people want to see. But yeah, I mean, I don't really cope with it. Like, I had no clue that this is where I will be. Like, if you asked me a half a year ago.
Bro, did you feel like you were getting more jagged as a person? Like, fuck me, I'm getting fucked over all the time.
Oh,
this is
sure.
what esports. Like,
for sure.
Or did you like look at things as like, I should be grateful that I even played in the LEC because what the fuck?
I mean, I talked to my dad and he just told me to be, in the end, I was getting paid to sit on the bench, right? Which is a better situation than 99.999% of people in the world, if not more. Because, I could do anything, but I wanted to play, So it feels very like I'm being paid for nothing, which is like I'm sure it's like, okay, it depends what your personality is. But for me, it was a bad thing because I felt like I just had a breakout year and I could try to go for more. And then if I fail, at least I tried another year, right? But I felt like chained in a way, and I didn't want to go play ERL. After Worlds, it just didn't make sense to me. But for sure, I got jagged. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like, you just get, what's the word? Like, a bit disillusioned to everything. Like, you just start thinking like, oh man, what's the point if you can play like this, you can play like that, and then it can change in a month, and then that team changes you, and then you're benched, and then you need to build back up. It can feel very like you're constantly climbing up the mountain and falling down or something. I don't know how.
It's definitely like your career is definitely like a version of the Sisyphus complex of the guy rolling the boulder. It's like
sure,
you are there at the 2-0 beating Mad Lions and it rolls down. It's just
for sure. It's very interesting. It's very unique. Yeah, I mean, I definitely know like what you mean by that. It does feel that way. I'm not gonna lie. But I'm still more fortunate than so many people in the scene, right? Like, there's people who come into LEC and you get like 1 or 2 splits to prove yourself, and if you have an unlucky split, then you just never play there again, and that's also not very fair, right? But I guess it's the nature of competition. But yeah, of course, I can be very fortunate that I am where I am because I've still been in and around LEC for like since 2019 now, which is a long time if I actually think about it.
Do you see yourself like ever going back to LEC, or do you think that you're just going to like, you know, stay with Los Ratones, go the content route? Like, where is your mind when it comes to all this stuff? Because obviously, like when you're doing these content teams, like you don't get paid the way that you do when you're in the LEC, right? So,
I mean,
what is your like what like are you just doing this for a little bit? What is your like long-term plan with your career?
I mean, it's again what I learned is that you can never plan the future too far out, because in 2020 my idea was, I'm gonna go to NA and then I'm gonna play 2-3 years and then I'm gonna NA paycheck, then I'm gonna retire or whatever, you know. But my goal is to still be as best as I can be. I still think I possess the level to be in LEC. I would just keep trying my best. Like, even though I'm in a quote-unquote content team, I made it clear what my goals are, and I think we share the same goals in the team. And then after the year, or I don't know when, I will reassess, and people can reassess what they think of me, and then I will take my next step. But obviously, if I feel like I don't have the fire to compete in LEC, to move to a different country, and to be there for 8 months of the year or however long, I like most of the year, let's say, then I won't do it. But I don't want to plan too far into the future. I think if I do that, then it's easy to. I did that in the past. I was constantly worrying about what the future will bring. You know, I would be on a contract like a Vitality, and I would worry about 5 months later. Oh, I'm gonna be teamless. I'm gonna be teamless. You know, or what if they don't resign me, or what if SK doesn't resign me, and it probably impacted some things that I did in the moments. So I always struggled a bit with that. But I'm kind of open to anything as long as I feel like I'm happy and satisfied with where I am. I don't want to like jail myself into something. I just, as long as I feel like my level is good enough to compete somewhere, I will try to compete. If I genuinely see myself being too bad to play, then I will not try to play anymore, because that's just, I would feel too bad about it looking back. So, yeah, that would be my answer.
I'm intrigued by, you know, like I was introduced to you, Crownie, when like I met Shaves. Like Shaves is a very good friend of both of us. Like yes. I love Shave. I Shaves. You must love Shaves too.
He's one of the realest people in the scene. Yes.
100%.
He like, I remember. It was in 2020 summer. It was after I got banned competitively for 2 games because I flamed someone in solo queue. I called them an ape.
Only 2 games? Rookie numbers, bro.
Yes. Like,
try 56, bro. Try 56 games and then come back and talk.
56?
50. So, well, that's assuming I didn't make playoffs, and I made playoffs every single split of my career. So probably we're more in the ballpark of like 65,
you got banned for a full year or like one split? Or one split was 50?
Full year. Full year.
Oh, full year. Okay.
Yeah.
Full year?
So probably like 70 games.
Which year was that? Season 4?
Season 3.
Oh, 3. Okay.
Yep.
So I was like, I was at rock bottom. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, because I couldn't even play with Limit. I thought I'm gonna play with Limit in BDS Academy, but me, Limit, Adam were all LEC players. So we had to get a last second. We had to get Dreamer Ace as support. The last second, and I was like, so you don't promote me and then you give me a support I don't want to play with? Like, I was so mad, you know. And then I got banned, and I was at rock bottom mentally. And he told me, he was one of the only people like that I talked to back then, and he told me like he thinks I have the potential to achieve things that not many people can. And seeing him believe in me, you know, it for sure helped me. So yeah, like you said, you got introduced to me through him back then. I remember that. Yeah.
No, I just brought him up, right, because like whoever Shaves believes in and likes, that to me by extension, it's like the brother of Shaves, like he is very selective, you know, with his homies, and he runs a tight ship, a tight network. So it's like I was bought into the Crownie story too, you know. Like I remember this was the time when I first messaged you, and I remember like some of the struggles at the time. I think probably if you look back, maybe you would view yourself as like immature, which is natural, right? I look back at my like last year as immature. The reason I brought this up is I wanted to know is like there's certain players that you worked with in the past, and then again Labrov now we mentioned him a lot. It's like BDS, you mentioned he's the strongest player. You mentioned him in Vitality too. And now he's joining G2. What can you tell us about Labrov? Because he's kind of a mysterious figure. Like he doesn't do interviews. We don't hear from him often, right? What can you tell us about Labrov? What do you expect for G2 coming into the next year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he was always super high in solo queue. Like everybody had an insane opinion of him for that because he was always like top 10, maybe even higher than that, and always a very big grinder. And I guess his results didn't show that in LEC, but then when I played with him and he was very like diligent, like we would just review the matchups, like it was the range matchups, and range matchups are very micro focused. Like you need to contest this bush, you need to use this spell like this, you need to not hit from the bush when you're sweeping the ward to give them vision, to give them control. You need to use one Heimer tower here, you need to save 2 for this, you know. We would talk about all of this, and we would just stay at the office watching like the world's games of T1 against someone with the bot lane matchups being like super, and we just constantly talk about the game. And my teammates I enjoyed the most playing with was ones I could talk about the game with for hours, and I felt like he was very like down for that, which I think will make him a good fit for G2. I think him and Mickey are both insane players, and as long as he has teammates who like talking about the game, which I would assume G2 is, because you know it's the most prestigious org in the league, pretty much. I think he will do good. Obviously, they have like a bit of a different roster than they had, but as long as they can tap into his strengths, which I think they can, because if you give him counterpick on support and let him play lane champs, he's very good in lane, and Hans was always known as a very good like dominant lane player, you know. I think like I would rate them and Fnatic as the best 2 bot lanes in the league for sure, you know. I think everybody agrees with that. So it will be very interesting to see, but I think he will do well. I believed in him from 2021. Like in 2021 summer, we were doing very well. We were like beating pretty much everyone 2v2, and obviously, I knew it can't be only me or him. It had to be a combination. But I always knew like he taught me a lot about lane, or like he didn't teach me, but he made me more aware of it. Maybe, you know. To like really care about the little things, which many other people don't do in teams. You know, I'm sure Yamato has seen it, and Dom in the past too. Like people would just not talk about their lane matchups and stuff. They would just never review, or they would just say, "Yeah, this lane is hard. This lane is unplayable." You know, you know.
Yeah, my AD carry used to just lock in old Urgot when the lane didn't go well. That was the way that we tried to deal with the situation and you know, work together and get through things. So everyone has different coping mechanisms, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, and I think in 2023 it was really about the little things on bot lane, especially winter spring. In summer it went back to Nautilus, Leona and stuff. But in winter spring, you really had to be very crisp on the little details, which is what I think he was like perfect at. And I can't know much about this past year because I had absolutely zero insight into the team. But I think they put him much more on engage, like he was winning every game on Rel, I think. So they relied on
1, 2, 3 ban Rel. I mean, I think that the weird thing about watching like the champion pool of Labrov is like there was champions that I remember we were watching consistently. We were watching like Leona Perma, right? We were watching all these champions in LPL, and then we'd go and we'd watch like LEC, and it would just be first pick Nautilus, and then you would just like counter pick yourself into the Nautilus. Like you would just see somebody be like, "Oh, they first pick Nautilus, we go Rakan into the Nautilus." That was the matchups that ended up happening. So we were really confused by like, I mean, can Labrov just not play like Leona? Is he only like a Rel one trick? We were really confused watching him play.
If you check his Games of Legends, Leona isn't among his best champs. But other than that, I think he plays everything. But I think in BDS he had to fulfill like engage role more this past year. But for example, I think in winter he played a ton of blitz. I think they're winning every game. And stuff. So he has like he also used to be really good at trash, but I mean the champion.
His Alistar was really good. I remember.
Like he loved Alistar, yeah. So I think obviously every player has champs they're better and worse at than other champs, but I think he will do well. I think he has a deep enough champion pool and good enough players around him and like environment that he'll perform. Like in my opinion, if he performed in other teams, I don't see why he would not perform in this team. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the other player we want to ask about is a player that you might have had, an issue with. Maybe you were alluding to him earlier, because we saw Adam not get a offer that he was, that he at least himself expected to get based on his tweets. He was saying, "Oh, I performed at this level for the entire year, and I'm not getting offers. It's like it's weird in LEC and all this stuff." How do you think he's going to perform on this rogue lineup? Because when you look at Adam, he's a very different player than everyone else. Like the thing that you're talking about, every other top laner has TP, right? Like normally when you play with Adam, historically, I know he tried to improve it over the course of last year, but his main thing was that you had to play 2 lanes always because you don't have teleport. So in mid game, it's like you just can't even go to one of your side lanes, or else you can just never push or contest anything because you just don't have the ability to TP. So how do you think that he'll perform in a different team? Because it seems like he plays a very distinct style and one that requires buy-in from his teammates to really make function.
I mean, I think credit, even though Striker didn't want me on the lineup and all of that, he did manage to improve some points.
Oh wait, never mind.
I mean,
mention for playoffs.
I mean, he improved on some points. He was playing Rumble many times in this past year, and
Gragas.
They were winning on Gragas too, which he didn't play before. When I played, right? It was mostly the Bruisers that he played. For sure, he has a distinct style. But I think, I mean, I don't want to assume things because assuming things is always bad without full info. But probably what impacted his team situation is the winter thing where he was benched or whatever. Because no matter what the PR statement is, it will look weird to people that you bench one of your best performing players before a super important best of 5, and then they barely lost it, right? So probably that impacted people. But for sure he has a very unique style. Again, I have not played with him for over a year, so I don't know how he's now or how he was this past year. But I don't think he lacked skill. He was skill checking a lot of top laners in the champions he was playing and in lane, But for sure, people need to buy into his style, just how people probably need to buy into mine to a certain extent, As for the rogue lineup, I think he should pair well with Malrank. Because Rogue always suffered from the problem of not enough
activity.
Yeah.
But now, is there support Jonghoon now or no?
Yep.
So now they have a lot of wild cards, or however you wanna put it. So now it's there should be more action than there was in the past 3 years combined,
This is Astralis 2.0, but
it is Astralis.
The crazy guy in top lane instead of mid.
Because people don't remember that Astralis in 2023. Spring
was actually good.
No, I mean we're second. We were first or opposite. They were first. We were second. No, we were first. They were second. But we had the exact same score or something. But we came back against them. Okay, it was best of ones, but they were actually good. But Junghoon was always playing they played Twitch Casio one game. He played a lot of Pyke. They played very unique champions, and Adam plays the same. And especially, I don't know. I know the format is a bit different. I don't know exactly what it is, but
I think the first split is the exact same.
The winter is exactly the same, but
really?
finalist. Okay. And then it's single round robin, best of 3 in spring. And the summer I will take forever to explain. So let's leave it at that.
I mean, I think they can surprise people. I don't think Adam's problem was ever skill as a player. I don't think that was his problem ever. So. And there was he was the reason me and Labrov even went to BDS because he thought that me and Labrov were very good in Vitality, which kind of surprised me at the end because if he thought I was good enough to get me on the team and we almost won the split together, then it was a bit of a shock but it's kind of useless to dwell in the past too long, I guess. At one point, you need to move on,
Yeah, and stop talking about Piglet.
Piglet, yeah.
Oh no, believe me, I'm revamping everything. I'm going to be watching those academy games. I'm going to be seeing, hey, let's see what's going on here. Let's see how the coaching's going.
You're going to critique the draft. You're going to like lip read the draft.
Every draft, I'm going to be like, there's no possibility that the players could not play certain champs. If the draft is ever bad, it's fully coach fault. I'm going to be on the train.
That's the best conclusion always. The notion in esports that coaches draft in the West, at least, is the most fake idea of all time, because you have players saying, I can't play this matchup, I don't want to play this champ is useless, this champ is broken, pick me this champ. And then they go on stage and they draft, and then they're like, this coach is so bad at the game, what the fuck is this draft? Or, oh wow, this coach is insane, what is like? But most of the time it's not the coach drafting, it's like a collective of all people, But that's, again, people don't know that because they don't see the inside look.
From what I've seen with teams, it seems very hard to get most players to play like a bad matchup for the team in the West.
Sure.
It seems like almost impossible to be like, hey, I know this lane is not good, but you can survive it, and your champion will enable everyone else on the team. Like, this is just a point that almost no one wants to take the L on. They just don't want to look bad individually.
For sure. I mean, it might change, like now lane swap meta, like this past year, and probably now it might change a bit. But for sure, that was the case. Like, people just say, I can't blind this top lane matchup is unplayable. Like, and then they would just, people in the other regions would just play it. But for sure, like, there was a big issue it's a false perception that people have in the West that like draft is solely made by one person and he has absolute authority on everything. That's not how it works. But yeah,
I would say though, just to add, because from my experience side, I think it's like when you're finally on stage, it's an accumulation of everything you've done, and like all of the things that you needed to prevent before you got there needed to happen a long time before. It's like, if you committed hours into practicing something or you let something happen ahead of time, it's like usually you go on stage and that is just like the result of your practice and all of like the effort. If you've been playing Nidalee perma and then you play some dumbass shit, and you lose, and it's like that's on you, right? I think like the coach kind of works in a way. It's like, at least in my mind, most of the teams is sometimes you have players that don't know shit. Like, I've worked with players that don't fucking know what champions to play, don't need to learn. And it's like, in that year, you need to specialize. Like, you need to, you are a bot lane expert now. I have to focus on bot lane. There's definitely the case like that.
100%. Like, I had teammates who would fall asleep after 3 minutes of draft talk. And I had teammates, and I could talk about draft for like 50 minutes, So it's like, but I legit had people in the couch falling asleep after 2 minutes, So it's like, obviously, the coach needs to adapt to the players he has. With some players, he can just be like, yo, what do you think this matchup is good? Okay. And with others, he needs to like closely talk to them every day, talk to them about meta, give them directions. So it's obviously player to player, team to team. But I never liked, it's obviously that's why it's very hard to gauge what coaches actually, like what a coach's level is, because you can be a bad coach and you win like, I don't know how many splits, or like you have constant high placings, and opposite. And especially in best of ones, it's so hard to evaluate that. But for sure, it really depends. From my experience, rookies don't want to talk about draft, first of all. They only want to play the game, mostly solo queue. They don't want to VOD review. They don't want to talk about draft. And they don't really care about scrims as much. Like, they just mainly want to play solo queue, from my experience. This is what most rookies are like. And the veterans are kind of like talking about draft pretty deep and like, getting into like more long discussions. That's how I perceive it as.
Circling back to the previous conversation, we were mentioning some players like you've known Nemesis for such a long time, and the community loves to obviously like speculate how good he would be in the LEC, and this has been like a very, very big mystery. Yes. Like obviously Nemesis is really fucking good at the game, but from your side, not having known him for such a long time, last time he played in LEC 2020, like that was a very tumultuous year. Like I joined Fnatic and like it was basically me bringing in pizza and everything was on fire, like that meme, you know. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like this guy hates this guy, this guy hates this guy. Like nobody on this team wants to play with Self-Made, and we are playing with Self-Made. I don't know what is happening. And then it's like the whole situation with Nemesis was also completely fucked, right? And obviously this was a very, very long time ago, but what I'm getting at is how has Nemesis changed as a person? Like where would you like from you knowing him so close and intimately, how would you perceive his growth as a person, as a player, and how could you like imagine a situation where he would play on let's say a top team again in the LEC?
I mean, for sure, I think he has the skill level to play. I think again it was the similar case of what you guys talked about, where like they ended up losing in 5 games to Knight. Knight was at that point hyped as like what, second best mid after Chovy. Like it was like Knight, Chovy at that point, right? Like he was elite, right? Like elite. And people had like the memory of the last series, which is what happens very often. Like I've talked to people from other regions and it's always like, yeah, you do bad at Worlds, you're kicked, you're boosted, whatever. And a similar thing happened. I know the environment was not ideal. I would imagine the pressure was immense. Because I felt like probably a percentage of that pressure at Worlds, and it wasn't nice, you know. And I know at that Worlds it was COVID, and everybody was in their rooms, like isolated, so it probably makes it even worse and stuff.
Horrible with the COVID testing and the food.
Exactly.
Like I've heard those horror stories from Shades.
Yeah, apparently the food was awful.
People were like, it's like breaking Kit Kats on rice and eating that.
Apparently it was horrible. And for sure, I think from when I know him, he matured, obviously 10 years ago. I think he has very clear ideas of how he wants to play the game. I think he's obviously good enough. I think it's just obvious to anyone that actually knows the game. And I know people know that the reason he wasn't playing is because he didn't think the rosters that he got offers on were good enough. But generally, like the top rosters always have very established mid laners because it's probably just the nature of the role most of the time. Like the only top one that didn't have an established one was probably BDS, and people started rating Nuke very highly, and the org seems to like him a lot, right? But yeah, I think it's nice to see the growth from him. I think he just speaks his mind clearly now. Like I don't think he talks a lot, but when he does, he always speaks very clearly, you know, and doesn't like beat around the bush. And obviously, skill-wise, he's extremely good at the game, and probably a big reason I'm on the team because I think he probably mentioned my name and stuff. So obviously, I have to be thankful for that. But
do you ever think about like forming like a little Slovenian alliance and just talking shit about like the rest of your teammates privately in your mother tongue, since like not many people speak it?
Well, the problem is it's online, you know. So
yeah.
No, I'm joking. I mean, like, I mean, the thing is, league terms cannot be spoken in Slovenian. So even when you talk about league, it's like half English because I'm not gonna say league terms in Slovenian. It's so weird, you know. But yeah, like, yeah. I mean, I think he's very good, and he probably saw that like even in the top teams, like people who are unqualified have a lot of say that they should not have. I'm sure Yamato knows it from Fnatic and what people have been saying for years, and I don't want to say specifically, but
you're very specific. I'm sorry, brother.
I know.
So
all I need to say is
Darno is unqualified. We'll just
okay.
throw it out there.
Like it's like sometimes it feels like people who don't know much about the game are doing game-related decisions. But that's probably a consequence of the league scene being very still young relatively, you know? So it's hard to gauge how qualified people are. In sports, it's like most of the GMs or coaches all had experience from before, right? But here, it many times happened that was not the case. And then those situations would happen. But I think if he wants to come back to LEC, he can easily do it skill-wise. I mean, ideally, I could do it with him because I've always wanted to play with him. Like, we only played in Mad Lions together, right? In the self-made roster where we won New Masters. And then he went to Fnatic. But I thought that was like one of the best ERL rosters ever. People say that the BDS Academy was better one from this year, but I think that one was pretty comparable. Like 4 players went to LEC. So I think it was pretty good. And I've known him, like, he's what I mentioned to you guys in the past about Labrov, that I could talk to him about the game. Like in Mad Lions, I would wake up and it made me really mad because every time I woke up, he was already awake watching Faker VODs. And it made me really mad because I always woke up like 8, like...
Yeah, because you should have been watching Chovy or somebody better, you know?
No, that was 2018. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out why you were so mad because I would be mad too.
No, but because I felt like I was a grinder, right? And I would generally stay up a bit later than him. But I wanted to wake up first too. But he would always be awake first, watching VODs or playing. And I was like damn, you know. And we would just talk about draft and about meta and about what's good and what's bad constantly after scrims, before scrims. And I like people like that in the scene because to me, if you throw away 10 years of your life playing a game for 15 hours a day and you don't want to talk about the little things and min-max as much as you can, to me it's a waste of time. And that's why like my point before was like, when I feel like I'm either not good enough or I don't have the fire anymore to compete, I'll just stop because why would I sink so much time into something that I'm not passionate about? You know what I mean? So that's what I like. That's the personalities I identify the most with. That's probably why I am close with Shaves, as Yamato mentioned before. Because to me, it's just nice to be able to talk about certain topics for hours and in depth.
No, it's strange. At least in my experience, it's like you go through like your career in a way, and it's like there are certain people that if I would work again, I would want to work with them. It's like I joined KC and I brought Shaves with me. I needed Shaves with me. This was priority number one, right? It's like and there's like certain people that you want to you kind of collect them over time, and it's fun when you find ways to make like your paths cross again because you are limited in this way. That's why, like for me personally, I'm very happy to do this team. Right? It's like I always wanted to work with Perks in some capacity. Jankos I worked with back in 2015. Dom is like for me one of my closest friends. Like I'm super happy to do this with him too. You know, it's like it feels good to take control, as you mentioned. You know, because in esports we have none.
Yes, it's a very rare opportunity to be able to have this in esports because I can tell you that 90% of my teammates I've had, I just don't talk to them anymore, right? Maybe I don't remember I don't know about 90. I said number, but most of the people I don't speak to anymore, right? So if you actually find people in a field like this that you identify with so heavily that you can call them friends, is rare. So it's like for sure it should be cherished. So I completely understand where you're coming from because it also brings back some of the spark that I mentioned you guys probably felt like there was in the past, where you feel like you're like creating teams with your friends and you're all working towards the same goal with the same like standards and things in mind, which I like for sure during the years when I'm in teams and I have rookies that are like much younger than me or have a completely different mindset on things. It's hard to identify with that, of course, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just like, or in BDS or in other teams.
I think it's hard to make esports not feel just like, with the format that we were in for so long and stuff, it started to feel like mundane at some point. Like it's hard to make it feel fun again, you know, because like, the game changes, even the way everything is structured, right? You go within teams and it's like you have your morning meeting and it's like everyone has like these specific things that they need to present, and like you don't really feel the passion. It's like half the time when you go into like these types of situations, you can tell that it's like players don't even want to be there. It's like you have the morning meeting beforehand. It's like, okay, we're gonna talk about like our goal for the day, and they don't say a fucking word the entire time, and you're just sitting there. You're like, Well,
Can
I'm
this just
told
be
by
over? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's like they have to, like you try to require them to participate, and it feels like it's
Yeah.
school. Like literally,
Yeah,
that's the vibe that I get from like morning meetings in esports. It feels like you're in school.
yeah. The PowerPoints with like the
Yep.
individual goals. Okay, communicate better, or like this like some random like bullet
Yeah.
points, and then everybody's bored on the couch, barely even paying attention, and then you have the draft.
That's how it
meeting.
is like everywhere,
Oh, yeah.
bro. Like that's literally how it is in like every team. Like I have not seen a team where it's like 5 people that are like, I can't fucking wait to the morning meeting, you know? And it just it's like at some point it stopped being an enjoyable thing, right? So I think that's like at least our goal with starting this team and or just having such heavy influence within this team is we want to have like fun with esports again, like make it feel like it did back when I got into it, because there's obviously trade-offs. The other side of it is obviously everyone has a lot more fucking money now, right? Like you have a lot more fucking, like everyone is way more compensated now than they were in the beginning of esports. But like as a result, you didn't play, like how often do you actually get to choose who you play with? Maybe you'll have like one player in a team that you can like that you really wanted to play with, but outside of that, it's mostly you're just getting signed through agents or something else. Like you don't even know like if you want to like play with these players, like you don't have anything in common. You might even have like beefs from solo queue with fucking people that you just like are randomly on a team with, and you just have to pretend to ignore them, or you might have like not liked them previously. It just feels very like corporate and like isolating, and it's just not enjoyable anymore.
I mean, definitely. Like, I mean, when I, for example, for me, when I joined the academy, and I was like, half the people were just playing for a paycheck,
Yeah.
And then you have some random meetings talking about some concepts, and people don't even care. And then you just
which is like I don't want people to get the wrong perception. Like I am down for like the morning meetings and stuff. I think that this stuff is like very healthy for teams, but the problem is it's like you require buy-in for people to make these useful. Like I like as a coach or as an analyst or as like one player, you can't make the morning meeting useful. If you're gonna do a morning meeting and 4 out of 10 people are going to be invested into it heavily, then it's just going to end up being worthless. It's like you just won't get anything productive out of it because you need everyone to be like, really just taking everything out of it, extract as much value from it as they can.
I mean, for sure. Like, for example, when I can, like, funny story, like, when I joined the academy in 2022, we started like 4-0. We were like winning against everyone. We beat LDLC, which was like ended up being the best team of that year with Yike, Eka, Exakick and stuff, and we were doing really well. And it was when Rekis was in K Corp, and it was again a failure Jinx meta, so we were playing well. And we were first in the league, whatever. And we played a LAN, like it was like LFL days, and we went 0-2. And before, like, we barely prepared for draft. It was like completely shit. We talked about draft for 10 minutes before we played on stage. We gave them last pick Twisted Fate on that year, which was completely broken. And I remember saying, like, I was so mad that I was like, wow, what is this preparation? Like, we're 4-0. We can be first unopposed in the league, and we just lose to the 9th place team, to Mirage, like with a Codison team, 10th place team. I was so mad, And then, okay, my teammates went to party, whatever, I stay inside. They can do whatever they want. It was free, And then we ended up doing super bad in scrims. And I remember telling some of my teammates there, like, you guys are, like, you have opportunity to learn from people who have more experience than you, right? I didn't only mean myself, other people too. But you just don't care. Like, you don't want to VOD review. I have to force you to VOD review. When I was in SK, Trick would take Daze after every game and VOD review him, and he would perma VOD review with Perks. And Trick told me that I think Perks said that Trick was one of the players that taught him the most. And he would just Perks would like. A rookie should go to the veteran and ask for his help. I mean, obviously it should be together, but if you show that willingness, it's one of the best things when you see somebody that's like hungry about the game, right? And then one of my teammates said that when they look at me, they don't see their teammate, but they see a monster. And I was like, what? But that's exactly what I said. That's exactly what I said. And I had to stop myself from laughing, But I was like, what do you mean monster? Like, we were undefeated. We have opportunity to be first, and we just slack for no reason. And then we lose, and people just don't care. And that's what kind of like, because I went from LEC to that, and the salary wasn't that much lower. I had luck, but the effort level was way lower. Like people just didn't care, It's like people are just there to play. Some people have like dreams of playing LEC, but most people are just content where they are, and that kind of irritated me.
Yep.
But yeah, like, but in the end, it's probably like that in work too. Like you probably have people who have low ambitions or high ambitions, and when that directly impacts you, it can obviously be frustrating if you're in like some work where like the group performance is important, But for sure, that was a big problem in my teams. Yeah, like for example, my biggest thing is like most of the time what I noticed, rookies just don't give a shit about like draft talk or VOD reviews. Like they don't want to VOD review ever. They don't want to watch VODs of other players.
But it's also like the way they VOD review. Like from what I've seen, the way that rookies VOD review, it's like the mechanical stuff. It's not even the stuff that they should be reviewing. It's like, hey, let's talk about like lane assignments, and you can just like feel the groan, like where it's like, don't make me talk about lane assignments. Oh, don't let me talk about like ward position. It's like they don't care about any of this shit. Bro.
My favorite is when they watch highlights.
They watch exactly. They get told to watch a VOD and they just watch highlights. For example, the Gen.G against T1, and they just skim through the highlights. But the whole point of VOD reviews that you look like, okay, well, how did jungle path? How did he adapt here? How did they?
It's like that's like the least important. That is quite literally everything you shouldn't be watching. Like when you're watching when you're watching that VOD, what you're supposed to be looking at is like, okay, this guy based. What items did he base for? Okay, he bases. Where does he open on the map? Like this is like the stuff that you're watching for. It's like, oh, like I guess I should base on this wave instead. Like you should have these things come into your head. But yeah, it's like impossible
for sure.
half the time.
Like when one of like Duke, like the coach that I had in Vitality, something nice he did is he explained like the 2-lane opening, because he said Mad Lions back then was doing it with Mac, because they would always like to the 2-lane like they would push one side base, open mid, and then you have control of the map, and then I remember watching VODs of Damwon. Damwon was the best team back then, I believe, or I think they won 2021, and I was like, oh. Holy shit, he's right. Showmaker is perma opening on 2 lanes. Khan or whatever. No, it was what's the guy that retired? Nuguri, no? Or no, Nuguri was
Khan was in 2021. And then
it was 2021.
It was 2022.
It was 2021 because it was when we won. And I was like, oh wait, Nuguri pushes aside and then opens mid. They're never going 3 lanes, so they always have control of one side. I was like, fuck, he's actually right. And it kind of clicked for me, because before that I never thought of the game as like, oh, okay, open on 2 lanes. Maybe some people do it instinctively, Some people are like just by feeling, okay, if I push one side, I don't need to go there. I can go on the other side. But I remember when it clicked in my head, I was like, when I look at pro VODs of the best teams, I can see, where the AD carry uses the ward, or why he opens through mid here, or how he contests Herald by going through mid, and then I remember I saw when Viper was on EDG, when they won Worlds. It was 2022, right?
21.
2021. No, 2021 was Damwon, no?
2020 was Damwon. 2021 was EDG.
My bad. Yeah, okay, yeah. So ERL teams were obsessed with Herald, okay? Everybody wanted to contest Herald. I thought Herald was a bait because you could trade for bot lane. And okay, so I talked to someone who told me Herald is a bot lane objective. Like you contest Herald by involving the bot lane. Like if the AD carry falls behind, it's not good. And then I watched EDG, and every single time they would contest Herald, Viper would walk mid, take the mid wave while Scout would be on river, right? So they guaranteed that no matter what, Viper is never losing a wave for contesting the Herald. And I was like, wow, damn. And then I showed it to my team, or somebody showed it, and I was like, oh, that's useful, But if I just skimmed through highlights, I would be like, oh wow, Viper is smurfing this teamfight so hard. But I would never learn anything conceptual about the game. Or like some teams would, when they would play Baron, people always used to siege mid lane with Baron. But then
and then people are like, oh, you siege a fucking side lane with 4 and you go 1-4.
You go 1-4, you go side lane because you can't get double flanked, and you slow push the side lane and you hug the right wall so that they can only engage one side instead of being triple
I
flank.
mean, we literally see teams still not know how to
Still go
do
mid,
this.
yeah, yes,
like I mainly the I want to call them era, the wildcard teams. Like I've noticed this at MSI and Worlds, the lower tier wildcard teams, they actually get Baron. And it's either they go mid or they play 3 lanes insta with Baron. They just go 1-3-1 with Baron, and then no one can do anything. No one can push anywhere because like they're spread way too thin,
like
and then nothing gets done. And I watch this, and I'm like, what is their coach doing? Like, what is actually their coach doing? Because I feel like this could be resolved, and it's like you can never know. Maybe the coach tells them, and like some players just can't learn. You know, like some players are just stupid straight up. Like I don't know what else to say. But like most of the time, I'm like, how does this not get resolved? Like this is literally like this was something that I remember learning in like 2014 or 2015 from playing against TSM. Yeah, because TSM would do this, and I was like, what the fuck? Oh shit, they always go bot. Like I remember hearing comms or something from Bjergsen, and he was like, oh yeah, go bot. Like we got Baron, go bot. I'm like, what the fuck? I've been going mid my entire life. Like it used to just be like, get Baron, go mid. You know,
like got shown to me in like 2020 in academy. Interestingly enough, by one of my teammates, how like I think it was some of the Korean teams. I don't remember who, and they would always siege for side lane, and I was like, that makes sense. Like it just makes sense. And I remember teams still go 3 lanes, and then one guy gets caught, and then your Baron plays over. And so you tell me you're getting...
and then you try to like push really hard on the other side, and then those guys like they can't actually get anything done, and then they get caught like right after the play because everyone shifts down, and it just becomes a clusterfuck, and your Baron power play just ends.
And people are paid like so much, right? And this is not like a super complicated, like for example, you could say there's some complicated things in League, like sometimes some Baron dances and how you like turn and stuff. It's not that easy, but Baron Siege has been in the game for like so long, and teams still messed up, as you said. But for example, those things are things I learned from VOD reviewing. You know, I would just watch the top teams like with intent. You obviously need to watch, like trying to learn something, and you're asking yourself, oh, why is he not taking this top wave? Ooh. For example, at Worlds, I noticed that Faker, Chovy, all the top mids in mid game, they would never fast push a side lane mid game. They would always let the wave build up to the night creeps and to, because if you fast push one wave, you can be in danger, right? But if you slow push, you create a longer turn for yourself, which things that people have not done for a long time, you know, like that. So there's always stuff you can learn from VOD reviews. It's just about how willing you are to actually do it.
I think often the main issue is like as you mentioned, it's like if you watch a VOD, you should isolate one thing that you're watching. It's like when we are like, for example, if I'm co-streaming and you're like watching like the overarching ideas, you just like pay attention to like macro and where people are. But it's like if you want to be in tune with, for example, I did this like breakdown that in the end it's like it took effort. It's like I was just watching what Korea is doing when he's playing supports with high mobility, right? It's like he was playing Bard, Rakan, Pyke, which is a very specific like class of champions, and they leverage like how he puts his vision to make sure that his jungler can like perma farm without like ever contesting any wave. And it's like you just have to look at that one thing. It's like if you just like skim through the VOD, you don't absorb fucking jack shit. It's like you just tune in. It's like, oh, this mid laner, like, oh, this Jinx, like this RNG always have the Gala has fucking always 50 CS higher than everybody. What are they doing? Oh, he's taking Raptors here. Every ward they are sweeping, and then they're making sure they have ward around mid so support can leave, and then he's just contesting as if he has support, and that's how they play. It's like you just have to tune in to basic ideas.
Yeah,
Something I wanted to go ahead.
I mean, just quickly, like, I remember watching Jackie Love VOD when it was Lucian Nami, because nobody knew what was good at contesting mid with the Lucian. And I remember watching, like, they would pink the side bush of mid, and his jungler was hovering right there next to him. So the second he dashed in, everybody was ready. If a fight happens, his jungler is there, he has vision on one side, so everybody knew exactly how to, like, enable him on mid, because Jackie Love was, like, carrying on, or Elk, like, they would always be so insane on Lucian. But everybody on the team knew exactly how to empower that. So obviously you learned that by watching VODs, because many like junglers don't know like that you need to be on the mid wave when the Lucian dashes in. You know, they're like, yeah, if I'm in fog, I can be on crags, I can be doing graves or whatever. But the way you play Lucian Nami, you need to maximize every single mid wave, the poke, So, for example, that's also something I learned from VODs. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Sure, it ties into like champions, right? It's like people like in Europe, we mentioned like Lucian Nami. It's like people knew how to lane with Lucian Nami, they partially, right? But then it's like they never won games, even they were ahead. Like they didn't win because they didn't know how to, like they didn't make a deeper dive. I remember like watching V5. That's what we watched to like learn how to play Lucian Nami. And then we just like applied that. It's like, oh, they make sure they have vision around mid. And the whole game point is to make sure that Lucian can dash on every mid wave. Otherwise he's completely useless. I wanted to just bring up the one thing that, like in regards to like the whole team meeting thing, right? Because we talked about that. I do think that in most teams and also in most environments, a few people do most things. I think that it works the same way in companies. There's a lot of people that just like go by doing less. I think when you're like hyper competitive, right? Like like if you're in the LEC, you're supposed to be top 10 in Europe, right? Supposedly, like then it's like hyper competitive and there is a certain expectation. But I do think that in most teams, there are a set few of it just naturally happens that a set few of people, sometimes one, sometimes two, that are going to be like the core and the center of how much a team will de-accelerate and accelerate. It's like if sometimes you have those figures that take that position and can put the wrong pressure on your teammates, or they can put the right pressure on their teammates. I think often it's like what we talk about in regards, like we've had G2 members here, right? And they were part of the 2019 and the 2020 roster, of course. And it was like, Perkz was very, very good at bringing people together, And I think when you try to put in those meetings, I think in a lot of cases, the biggest struggle is that you're trying to artificially place things in that need to be done. But in an ideal scenario, these are things that people would want to do. Like I remember like with Casey, I tried to implement that when we scrim, we are going to make sure that between the games, the main focus isn't to review every single fucking detail. The main point is that we go into the next game as prepared as possible. So if someone needs a break to breathe, we prepare draft, we highlight details that are important. And then I made sure that everyone felt okay with that. At the end of the day, we're going to take time to review things. So no one would feel like something was missed.
Left out.
But then it's like at the end of the day, when I'm sitting there, I'm like, we're reviewing these things. I like, most of the time it's like people are disengaged. It's like everyone agrees that it's a good idea, but the push, sometimes there is, you just need, it's like if you have one person that gets engaged and that engages a second, usually the whole group follows, And usually in my experience, in teams, you need to find who those people are. Like who are those people that is going to give the motivation to the players that are more like passengers in the sense. Because some players just sit back and play and that's what they do, right? And sometimes that's good because sometimes you have players that get too involved and then you have like 5 different players like this and it becomes a mess, right? So it's very, very nuanced with how like meetings work and how meetings don't work, because I've been on both sides of those coins. I've definitely held meetings and I look at the fucking players and I'm like, what, you guys don't want to fucking be here? Then fucking leave, Like there's definitely been meetings like that,
Yeah, I mean, I think the best case in every team is that the players talk between each other so much that all the coach has to do is like facilitate so that the discussion is good. But the ideal is that after every game, people will just discuss between each other. And I'm sure in the top teams, that's how it is, because the players are playing the game. So they always have the most raw like view of what happened, right? Of course, the coach has a overall perspective, but any discussion done by a coach to the players would be better done between the players. The coaches just do it because most of the time the players don't, So if you find players who are like very open about discussions with each other, it's like probably it's what every coach wants to see, right?
Nothing is new, bro. It's just like I don't care about tryouts. I want to go out and drink and see how I vibe.
Yes,
it all comes back to this.
Like, so for sure. Like I know what you mean with that, because I experienced exactly the same thing as I told you. Like I had people legit. Like I'm not lying. fall asleep during me. Like we would just be on the couch talking about draft, and they legit just fell asleep. So then it's like if I see that, I'm like, whatever. I just told the coaches I'll just talk to them for 2 hours after, and I just spent 2 hours talking about draft with them later. And I think it's just the reality. Some people are more open to discussing things, and some people just need to play and play off feeling or be told, okay, play this, do this in the game, and they will do it, And some people are more on like the other extreme where they need to talk and be super meticulous about every little thing in the game. For example, for me, it really helped me if I knew what I'm gonna play on the day. You know what I mean? If I knew like, okay, our plan is to first pick this AD carry or play this into that, and then I could think about it in my head, it would really help me. I didn't enjoy the feeling of like going on stage and freestyling. You know what I mean?
No, of course.
So I think it just depends on the player, like very, very heavily. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the problem lies when people are not engaged, but they're also like disagreeable. Like I want like the people that are not engaged to be like, if you don't want to be the one making the plan, like you have to just go with the fucking plan then. Like whatever is made. You can't like last second. I feel like this is a problem that a lot of teams run into is you come up with the plan and like the plan and it's like, okay, nice, we have a plan. And then the next day, right before you go on stage, there's just like, oh, then there's this issue, this issue, this issue. There's just a bunch of issues that like could have been brought up in the meeting that don't end up getting brought up. And then it's like, then you have to kind of compensate for that because that's the crunch time. Like it always felt, from what I've seen, it feels like every time you are panicked and rushed before going on stage when really like you have infinite time to prepare, right? Like you should be like, it should be like, okay, we're going on stage, almost new information most of the time, because most of the time you're playing an opponent that you had, a time to prepare for. You're not getting, it's not like a tiebreaker situation where you have to like really rush and figure out a plan. And it's like, instead of it being the 2-3 days of preparation, it ends up being like, all right, we're in the room before. Okay, now like this thing changed, and now because this person wants to do something different, everything else has to change, and you just end up going into like the draft feeling rushed. So it's like a very like weird situation where like there's people that are quiet and they don't want to be part of the discussion, but then also they'll be a problem creator later on. So I see you smiling. I know that you know exactly what I mean when it comes to this type of stuff.
100%. It's also like when people play warm-ups. And then you play warm-up, and you play a draft that you're going to play stage, and then you lose, and then you start talking about changing the draft, and they're like, but no, like, because warm-up is just warm-up. Like, most of the time, when you warm up, especially if it's ERL team, they will, like, try hard, super hard. Well, some people don't even want to play warm-ups. For example, I didn't care about warm-ups, so, I mean, I would play, but, like, I remember we'd play a warm-up, we'd, like, almost lose against, like, some ERL team or something, and then sometimes we'd have to be, okay, guys, don't change anything. It's just a warm-up. Like, this worked for the whole week. Let's stick to it. So for sure, it's hard to find those balances because, again, there's so many different personalities. Some people, as you said, like, some people like warm-up, some people don't. Some people like heavy prep. Some people just want to play solo queue. So you need, like, that's why most of the time I would say the coach's job is to balance the personalities, I guess.
Like filter through the bullshit, It's like
for sure, because the coach knows if he has a player, every coach knows he has a player that if he tells you he wants to play something, you just fucking ignore that shit. You know what I mean? Like he tells you, bro, I think this shit is fucking broken. I played against the solo queue. I know I told you it's useless before, but it's fucking broken. And then you play it, and then he goes, this game is useless. And then then I remember like some situations. Exact same as I described, and everybody in the room would just laugh because the day before the champ was useless, then we lost to it in Scream, and now it's OP, and K has no counters. And somebody would say, wait, but was it useless a day ago? Like, well, why are we using such extreme words, So for sure.
It's like, that the ideal is like, if you are preparing for 2 weeks, from day one, you have an opinion.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you have an opinion of what you should play, what you should do. You start somewhere, right? And then it's like if you change something, it needs to be for the right reason. And I think always it's like, and then when you are done with 2 weeks of practice, then all of the conclusions should have been reached because you are answering the questions real time, right? It's like between the games, you're answering those questions real time. I think always the challenge is that it's like the information coming at you through solo queue and through, of course, scrims is very sporadic. And you just have to like be lazy focused. It's like, I don't know how many times we watch games from outside and you're like, what the fuck is this team doing? Like, why are they even trying to play Nidalee? You're 9th place. Like, go fuck yourself. You know, it's extremely common. It's like, because you fall into those traps. It's like, oh, we had our prep, and then it's like then you like play your prep, and then you scrim against the team, and they fucking smoke you, and you're like, oh, should we play what they're playing? Should we switch? Should we do this? And it's like, with experience, you begin to realize it's like, oh, you have to cut through the bullshit, because. Like with 2022 Fnatic, I've shared the story many times. Dom has heard it a million times. I said, it's like, I would prepare the draft together with Shaves. And then it's like, I really like doing it late into the night. And then the last thing I did, I wanted to prepare the draft. And then when I wake up, I look at the draft again, and I felt like I could sleep on it, like really, really well. This was my ritual. And then it's like always when it wasn't like a draft meeting, it was like a draft showcase. But like with the 2022 roster, it's like just a bunch of players that had like performed really, really good in different roster alteration. And it's like they would complain and argue for 20 minutes, and then I would present the same draft after 20 minutes, as if it's new. I would showcase the exact same one. I would tell this to Shaves.
Did you phrase it differently? Did you say like things like okay, with all that input, I have an idea then, and then you just
pretty much
the same thing?
Like I would have to bullshit them. And I would say this to Shaves. I was like, Shaves, I need to do this. I need to do this so they feel like they were somewhat in control, but they weren't. And I had to do this every time like clockwork. It's like, this is the draft, guys. It would be like pristine. I would be very happy with it. It's like, no, we can't do this. What the fuck are we doing? This player can't play this champ. Alfari sucks at GP, whatever, you know? And I'm like, okay, so what do we do this? What is but guys, I have an idea. Look at this. And then it's the exact same shit, and then it would work. Because like players are just stressed, you know? Players are stressed on match day, and they turn into like different people, you know? It's like for sure. On match day, people change. A lot of people change, for sure.
That's why I think for people who did not play or were not in teams, they probably don't understand what people think when they say that scrims are like useless. They're not useless, but it is very easy to get wrong conclusions from scrims, because the way people play on stage and scrims is different. Like, and it's been proven for years, you know. And the longer you play, the more you know it. But probably the longer you play, like, the less different it is. Like, you probably get more comfortable playing, like, in a similar way. But it's the same thing you mentioned with Nidalee. Like, bro, Nidalee has been dominating, or like Caitlyn. Every time it's Caitlyn meta in Europe, it is perma-banned in scrims. First picked, perma-banned for weeks. It gets played one game on stage, loses for a week, and then it's just never touched again. And it's happened for years because it's a champ that warps the game. It's the same as Nidalee. Like, when Nidalee is in the game, everybody needs to care about the Nidalee, because she's gonna like warp the game around her, and people don't like that, obviously. And it's the same with, for example, Caitlyn. And then on stage, the Caitlyn will get cheese ganked. For example, you know why Caitlyn was never played in LPL in 2023? You remember, like, Caitlyn in LCK was like permaban. In LPL, never played. I was checking. Why? What the fuck is this? Oh, in LPL, the fucking jungler would do red buff into level 2 Sejuani, Dragon, into Tribush, into...
I remember we talked about this at some point. I remember having this conversation with you at some point where it's like, level 2, they would just go bot, they would blow the summoners, and it doesn't matter what happens like the rest of the game. Like, it doesn't matter if this jungler loses his whole top side, anything. It's like, you just go, you burn the summoners, and then Caitlyn can't play the rest of the game.
Yeah, they would legit do, I think it was like red side or something, the fucking red buff into like go Dragon Pit into Tribush with Sejuani or some dash champ, level 2 gank from behind. And I was like, holy shit, imagine you play Caitlyn in LPL, you have to play against this every game. I would never play the champ in my life. Like, well, in LCK it was constantly banned or picked, like constant highest prior. So it's just obviously difference in how teams play. But again, it goes back to the point, like, in practice, it is always different. Because like it or not, people get affected by nerves and by the idea of playing like an official match for sure, you know. So
it's also what you said before, right? It's like what both of you said. It's like, I think just because most players become good in solo queue, there are certain things and triggers that you want to hold on to and that are tough to like let go. Like I think most players don't like to play the weaker champ, right? Like I remember there was this, we were at Worlds, we faced EG, right? We faced EG and I'm telling Upset, I was like, this guy doesn't fucking play Caitlyn. This guy doesn't play Caitlyn. Like they like it's, if they pick Kate, I don't give a fuck. Like it's trash. We pick MF, he picks Kate, right? And Upset looks at me. It's like, actually, he didn't look at me. We were in COVID. We were in quarantine. He didn't look at me. But I could feel if I was in the same room, he would look at me. and it's like, we win the game, right?
Yeah,
the game was completely fucking useless. They did like a shitty dive, and then the game was like over, right? And it's like, after the game, he's like, yeah, well, he played Caitlyn. I was like, but he was bad. He's like, yeah, but he picked Caitlyn, bro. Like, bro, he picked Kate. You said he wouldn't pick it. I was like, bro, I said he doesn't play it. There was nothing happened. Nothing went wrong, bro. You won the game. It's okay to be weaker for a moment of time, you know? But it's like, it comes from the same thing. It's like you want to be in the game and you want to look at your CS numbers, you know? You want to, but it's like, but then when you talk with someone that, it's like now Upset, of course, is very in tune with this. It's like, this was a long time ago and it was just an anecdote. It's like, if I speak to you and it's like, oh, we're gonna pick Kukma Lulu this game, you're gonna be 20 CS down, but it's gonna be worth it because you're really good against these champions. You can rationalize that very easily, but most players can't. Most players can't, you know.
Especially if you are most of your experiences from solo queue. Obviously, in solo queue, you want to be in control. Like every jungler wants to play like the aggressive junglers or like be invading, and nobody wants to play like Marušič Crownie, or like when you play the carries in solo queue, you don't want to play the losing side and get pushed in and play Jean or whatever, like Ashe utility, you know. It's the same for every role. But obviously in competitive, the mindset has to shift eventually. And the longer you play, or the more trust you have in, like, it just shifts eventually. Like
you watch it with you watch it especially with like junglers, because you see junglers come in and they're like mentally ill. They have to play like Graves, like Nidalee, all this stuff. And then the guys that have been playing for a while are like, they love to be the Sejuani versus the Nidalee. They love to just play that and be like, yeah, all I have to do is just not get shit on. It's so like intelligently path around what like the enemy jungler can, like when he's strong. Just make sure that you do what we call like reverse clearing and stuff, or you start on one side, get your raptors, then go to your blue, and you end up in a situation where you can't get invaded. You play towards your strong side, and then you show up to an objective, you're level 6, you have your ultimate, and like the other guy can't play at all. And you see this so much because like every jungler comes in, they want to play Lisa, they want to play Nidalee, they want to play Graves, and then over time they become like Vi, Sejuani, Maokai. Like they're like, these champions are so fucking OP. Like all I have to do is not get fucked. Like it's so easy to just not get fucked.
It's so funny, but they all have to go through it, because you have to go into a game, you need to play Nidalee or Graves or something, and you need to be up like 5 camps or however much.
Yeah, and then just get ulted.
And you need to lose in on every skirmish, and then you need to be like matchup is so useless, and everybody has to go through that. It's like a hazing ritual in LEC for sure. Same on bot lane. Like you have to go like 30 CS up, and you still lose, and you're like, what? But how? Enemy bot lane can't play the game. But some games it just doesn't matter. Some games you just need to pick like. It's the same like when you just pick Jean into Caitlyn or whatever. Like,
there's like random champions that I always see like have this phenomenon. Like there was a point I remember with supports where it was like everyone thought like Leona Nautilus was super OP, right? And then people were like, wait, what happens if I just go Rakan and then I go Merc Treads and I just play to not get completely fucked? I just don't like level 2 trade into like the Leona and lose my entire HP bar, and I just play that, and then at level 6 I could just like play the entire game. And I remember LEC, there was like this phenomenon in LEC where it's like Rakan and Braum would just like not get picked, and then playoffs would start and it would just be like Rakan first pick out of nowhere.
Yes, of course. Like Braum into Nautilus in LEC, it happened in 2023, like screaming G2. And they picked Kog'Maw Braum, and you could not win a single game against it. I don't think we're even playing Nautilus, I don't remember, but they would just play Kog'Maw Braum, and then we just copied them and won. And like, you just can't lose. You play Braum into Nautilus. I think Mickey started doing Emax. I think he mentioned it in the MVP interview, because nobody was doing it. He just said, I max E. I don't die. I just auto-attack people and I win the game.
It was like 55% damage reduction and had like 4-second cooldown or some shit. Like,
yes. And and people are just not winning because the solo queue experience is so vastly different, because it's just a different game in the end, that their perception is so skewed. And it's also the same in scrims, because in scrims, maybe the Brom will just fucking level 2 fight the Nautilus, die, and then you just kind of die on hook for the rest of the game. But in competitive, people play so different. I mean,
this meme was a thing even like, I remember like season 5, there was G2 had this super player called Brom. And no, not Brom. He was
called Brom.
He was called Hybrid, right?
I know,
Hybrid.
Hybrid, yes.
Hybrid. And there was like this, back then it was like player of the week, you know, player of the week.
Yep.
And then they would put like every single one for a role, and then it would be like Hybrid, and it would be like Huni, Pentakill, and it was like Febiven, 40 CS ahead on average, and then it was just Hybrid, 2 games on Brom. and this was the meme for the longest time. It was just like playoff game, it's time to pick Brom. It's just time to pick Brom. That's just life, bro.
We should just have like a rule, you know, like in LEC where it's like we will refuse to enable like Orianna, Braum, Ornn, like Rakan, like all these champions, like for playoffs if they're not played during the split, so that we can actually just get some fucking games. Because I felt like so many years of LEC that I watched, it was like, you know, everyone's playing everything in regular season, and then as soon as playoff hits, Ornn, Rakan, Orianna, Syndra would come, like all the fucking control. It was control mages, tanks, fucking, you know, Braum, Rakan every single game, and the whole game would just be like, it's like, what did we just play the entire split for, man? Like, why did I just have to watch 50 Leona Nautilus games for this?
But it's funny that that's the case, because that means either people are playing wrong during the split, or they're too scared and playing differently during the playoffs, right? Because there's no way that your read is that different when the games matter than when they don't. But
I just feel like it's always very like minor thing. Like you said with the Braum Emacs, like I remember for the longest time, it was just that people realizing it's like, oh wait, if I took, because when Unflinching used to give you the tenacity, that was like a very big, important, it was really important that, you know, in the East, the support it's playing Rakan would go for like Unflinching and Merc Treads, and then they would just be unCCable, and then suddenly the matchup would shift. But for the longest time in the West, it was like, Leona Nautilus just counter Rakan. You can't play it into them. And like Rakan is still countered by Nautilus to some degree, but like nowhere close to as bad as people thought it was, because they just didn't optimize like what they can do. But I think that goes back to what like Yamato was talking about earlier, and you were as well, where it comes to the like players not wanting to take like the weaker matchup. It seems like when you get into like playoffs, like you just need to like find these little things that make it more comforting to play the pick. It's like, hey, you are weaker than Leona, but if you just play it like this, if you just do this, then it's completely different, and that will completely warp like the mentality between how people play lanes. I mean, for the like since I've been around so long, there's so many different interactions that I remember that completely changed bot lanes. Like when Leona was the counter to Nautilus, people watched Ming play Nautilus into Leona, and he's like, wait, you just don't auto attack once you queue. Like that was the huge thing, is that every Nautilus would queue, and then they would naturally want to auto attack instantly, and then that would allow Leona to stun you, and then you'd get fucked. But if you just queued and then you walked away immediately, then you just neutralize the trade every single time.
Yeah. It's the same for Rakan Leona, like, because Rakan beats the bush control into Leona if you start Q and you like range leisure because you have high range. But if you W in before you're level 3, you will just die. So again, it's the same thing you mentioned. Like, people just don't know the little, but that's an underrated part, in my opinion, of people with a lot of experience. Because when you have a support who's played these matchups for 6 years, compared to somebody like, he has seen every meta. He has seen range metas. He has seen Leona Rakan. He has seen Thresh, Tank,
and it just snaps into place like way quicker.
Exactly. It's like, for example, I can give you this anecdote. When I played Aphelios into Jinx, I realized in 2023, when you play Aphelios into Jinx, what you should do is you trade Sniper into Jinx Rocket in your minion wave, so she hits your backline, so that she cannot cheater 3 or 4 against you. Because if Jinx gets stuck in lane against blue-purple, she will lose. But if she cheaters, she can avoid blue-purple by just basing and then catching the stack, right? Into everyone, I would just trade in the middle of my minions, and every Jinx would just cannon me. Because I think I saw some ruler or somebody doing it. I don't know who I saw doing it. Or maybe I came to the conclusion myself. But there's also a thing I remembered from somewhere in the past, or I saw on a VOD or something. and then I just did it. And I was like the first person in that split in 2023 to start playing Aphelios. Like when we played Vitality, when we beat them 3-0, I think they banned Zeri, and we first picked Maokai. And I told them we wanted to first pick Jinx. I said, no, first pick Maokai. If they go Jinx, I'll just play Aphelios. And that's what we did, you know? And because I was comfortable in the matchup. And it's just things like that. I only knew that because it happened in the past, or I saw it in a VOD, or, you know, or like for some, I don't know, some super specific support matchup, some range matchups or something, you know? Like Jana into Lulu or stuff like that. You only know it by playing it in the past. And if you're a rookie, and you play it against an experienced player, like if a rookie support comes and plays some lane against Mikix or Labrov, like Labrov Hans, Mikix upset, they're not gonna play the matchup correctly. Like I'm quite sure, you know. And it's just because how many games did they play of Rakan Leona? 1K maybe. Like okay, maybe I'm eyeballing it, but 500 minimum, you know. So that's what experience does in the end, you know. In League, I would say, because the meta, I'm talking a lot, but the meta is always in circles.
It's circular for sure.
The champions repeat each other every single time. In 2020, it was Aphelios, Jinx, Zeri when Zeri got released. Or sorry, it was Aphelios, Jinx, and then Zeri got released. Then it was Zeri, Sivir. 2023, Spring again. Aphelios, Jinx, whole MSI, Ruler playing Aphelios, Jinx, Zeri. Every single game, the matchups exactly the same. The tanks have to play this way. Or 369 was creating space for him the same way every single fight. And again, 2024 spring, if you check what Ice was playing, again, Jinx Zeri. So it's always circular. And then by Worlds, I noticed Riot always nerfs AD carries, and then it always goes to like Ashe Varus. Every Worlds is Ashe. Ashe is like the best champ in the game because people realize how much he offers. And then it's just always circles. And the more experience you have, the more years of this you repeat it. So you just remember the matchups. You're like, oh, I remember playing this matchup. You can cheat her here. You can fake base here. That's what I think is the biggest advantage of experience in League, in my opinion.
Agreed,
by far.
Yeah. Agreed.
By
I
far.
think also, like often somewhere along the line, it's like players accept something for what it is, but they don't know or don't put effort into understanding why it is. And the people that understand the why are the people that move first.
Yep.
Because if you know why something is picked, you can understand why, like what you can do against it and find like the next solution in the puzzle. You know, it's like you need to understand the why. Always understand the why, because most players just people pick this, I should pick this. He picked this against me, he answered this, okay, I'll play it. Oh, he played it like that, I'll play it like that. But then it's like, I think Whippo is probably like the best example of like the extreme version of that. It's like, if you ask him, oh, why did you do this? Oh, he will break it down for you, you know?
Oh, you'll never get to speak again. It's over for you, bro. You might as well just go to sleep at that point because your day is over.
It's like, I was watching his YouTube content, you know?
It's just over, man. Like, it is what it is.
I'm watching his YouTube
have
content.
to accept it.
And he's playing Renekton against Riven. And
I watched that.
And it was like, oh, like I didn't know that matchup, right? I've started E in that matchup away on the Riven trade, and he's like, oh, he starts W and then trades W in the first one, and then he just keeps hitting the wave in the cooldown, and then on the next W, if Riven trades again, he will have empowered W and will win always.
Yes.
And it was like just such a simple detail. It's like, oh, this is it, you know.
Top lane is definitely the role for that, because like I played it for a couple months, and then playing versus like former LCS players and stuff. So many matchups are like giga specific. It's similar when Crownie was talking about like the trading, forcing the other guy to trade in the wave. That's something that got done to me. I remember by Lorlo. I played Jackson to Renekton versus Lorlo, and he took like, in my mind, a horrible trade, but it forced me to E the wave. And essentially the way that matchup works is that if like Jax needs to crash the third wave. If you don't crash the third wave, like you need to crash the third wave and cheat a recall, because you'll get out sustained by Renekton if you just like stay in the lane. And he baited me to crash the second wave. And then on the second wave, like if you crash the second wave, then you can't contest the third wave, because essentially you need to like, if the wave is close to this turret, you need to trade with E, you need to walk up, and he can just like kite you. And that means he gets 3 first, and then he dominates you the rest of the lane phase. And I just remember like, just having that experience in top lane where like my whole game is over based off this one thing that happened at like level 2, and it's just the same exact thing where you just bait somebody to trade in the minions when you play like Jackson to Renekton. So I mean, this is like, these are the finer points of most matchups. But yeah, I feel like top lane is the lane where you get punished the most for that, because I think a lot of times in bot lane you can get bailed out in some way, but in top lane it's like,
because it's ranged. Like on bot, it's very hard to build. Like I was watching some top VODs, like I think the Whippo VOD into Riven or Ranked, he was like 60 CS up. Like the Riven was just 2 levels down.
Yeah, you can't play.
Forced to roam for the rest of the game, and I okay. Because on bot, like you're ranged, so you can still farm most of the creeps. Like you'll be behind, but but on top is just like brutal. But yeah, like I think the reason why the Korean or like the Asian players, like Koreans, Chinese players are better is because when I watch their VODs, they do all the little things so naturally. Like I would watch Viper, and he would just know every Zeri jump without putting indicator on the wall. You know what I mean? He would just walk to the wall and E perfectly on the spot, which means he did it so many times that it's just second nature to him. He doesn't need to think about it. He doesn't need to check. He just knows. And it's about every little thing as well. Like all the trades they do and everything is just that much more refined, which is what obviously makes the difference.
I don't know. Did you guys ever see the Bin Jax versus Broken Blade Poppy breakdown? Because this was at Worlds in 2023. It was absolutely insane, the level that like Bin Jax was on when he played like the matchup into Poppy. Like every single interaction was like crazy. And then like when you get to that level, it's like people are trying to figure out how the lane goes a lot of the time, or like, people have a very like kind of fixed idea of how lanes go. And I think this is why people are afraid to take like bad matchups, because in the West it's like, who wants to play Jackson to Poppy? I don't know any players that want to play Jackson to Poppy in the West. It's like, it just seems like, you just stay away from that. But Bin was like so good at understanding like just the wave crashes into like fake ward and like get a trade with a fake ward. And if you like trade a certain way on a certain wave, then suddenly like the matchup becomes skewed towards you. So I just remember watching that. And I'm like, yeah, this is a different level when it comes to like interactions. Like every interaction is accounted for, but then also just, I think the mind games are like the last level of things, like the fake warding and all this stuff. I think that becomes like, that's where you really like see the difference between the top players.
For example, a similar one, just quickly, like a similar one on bot lane was Lucian Nami into Caitlyn Lux. I remember, because obviously Caitlyn Lux is a counter, but if the Lucian Nami plays extremely crisp on every W cooldown of Nami and Lucian and small trades, you can win the matchup. And I remember playing with Labrov against somebody, and it's like, I think it was at Worlds where T1 or someone was playing the matchup super well, like into Aphelios Lulu as well. Like if you just know exactly how to play every single trade, or W, auto, step back, only trade the first strike, like stuff like that. Never get your first strike procced for fun, stuff like that. It shifts the bad matchup that is maybe in reality 60-40 or something. It can make it like 55-45 or something, So I think that's what those players do, right? Sam, you mentioned Bin, like he just wants to find the little 1%. Sorry, go on.
It just like the crucial aspect is, it's like for me it always comes back to the why. It's like, Poppy is good against Jax. But why? Because of this. It's like, there's like a very surface level to look at that, but then you go deeper into the details. Because I remember like we were doing 2-on-2s, for example, against Genji at the Worlds 2022. This was Lehens and Ruler. And like the conclusion in the end was that if we play Sivir Yumi against Zeri Lulu, is that we have to fight to 1 HP level 1. Like that was the conclusion. And it's like, it gets that deep. Like I remember 2021 as well. It's like with Hylian Upset, it's like we're screaming against T1. And then it's like, we're playing like Draven Amumu against Thresh Aphelios. Mm-hmm. And it was like, we tried an Allen and it didn't work. And it's like, you fine tune it. And then it's like, in the end, like that year, they were so dominant, especially in summer, because it's like they knew all of these details. Like I remember like we played against XL. We were playing like Rel Samira into like Graga something. And we just like killed them level 1. And then it's like the game was remade. And then we killed them level 1 again because they just fucking didn't know anything, But it just comes down to, it's like, but you can do the same thing on the so-called losing side. And I feel like OTPs are like the epitome of that, because it's like they play their champion no matter what. So they make it work and figure out cheeky ways of making it work, whether it's like through builds or whatever. For example, something as simple as I was watching today, I'm watching Baus playing Sion against Set. It's like, in my chat, it's like, oh, why the fuck is he buying Longsword and then going Ibami Cinder? It's like, in my mind, it's very simple. It's like, oh, he needs this AD with Cull because he needs to one-shot the wave. And it's just like a small, simple detail that changes the whole matchup. And then he proxies or whatever. And it's like,
he has not proxying, of course. And he one-shots the wave with Q. Yeah, of course. It's like, no, for sure. Like, for example, the Lucian Nami against Zeri Lulu matchup. I remember realizing that, like, if the Zeri if you walk in the middle of the minions and then try to sidestep the first Lucian W, and if you manage to do it and just start insta hitting the wave with Zeri, like Q auto perma, then the Lucian eventually will go and then the Zeri can like. And if you only trade with bomb platings and Lulu is the Zeri, you can survive until Zeri gets her base. It was like the old shield bow, the super broken.
Like the
Hellforce Kraken. Yeah, when the AD carries were the most broken champs in the game. Like, shield bow gave you, like, you just based Vamp Scepter and then you would survive. But in EU, people would just play the Zeri Lulu, they would just trade into the Lucian and just die. But if you played for push, you can survive. It's like, it's the same with like Aphelios Lulu into Lucian Nami. Like, the Aphelios has to really care about how he trades. He has to like play properly with sniper. It's like very little. I think on bot lane, on top lane probably shows in all the super like close melee matchups. On bot lane, it's mostly about range because it's so much about cooldowns. Because when you play like, I mean, it's also on melee, Leona Nautilus, but those are more like aggressive. But for sure, like I saw a deeper level of League when I was talking about the matchups with Labrov in that way, and it was the most fun I've ever had because you feel like you can go so deep about topics and you can have a real like sense of accomplishment when it goes well. Do you know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean.
You're playing a matchup, everybody thinks it's bad, and you play it and you win every game doing exactly that, and you're like, wow, my hard work is actually showing. So it's like an amazing feeling, pretty much.
No, I'm with you. It's like I feel like we are approaching. This is probably like the longest episode we've had, right?
Ever, for sure.
Bro, it's like time has flown away. I think it's a sentiment of like how fun it is to talk about. It's so easy to go deep. Into certain things. We've kept you here now for almost 3 hours.
I've got time. I've got time.
In my mind, like the main thing that the only thing that I wanted to cover to bring up to you, because about League we can talk forever, and we will not wake up tomorrow. You mentioned how, like, now with your current team, you mentioned that you guys are like aligned on what you want to achieve. It's like, can you share like
Sure.
like the deeper point of like the mission statement and like the values that like everybody has agreed upon, and how does like Baus let's say manage all of that?
I mean, obviously, when I heard of the idea, I was like, okay, I mean, it's like huge personalities in the scene. I mean, it was like Nemesis, Baus, Kadril, obviously, like, I knew Nemesis. I didn't really know Kadril and Baus. Of course, I knew of them. They were both massive in their own rights. But I didn't know how serious they would actually take this, right? Because it's very easy to just say, it's just going to be a content team. We're just going to scream a little bit on stream and then play and then, But even from the start, like, first of all, I saw how passionate Kadril was about all of it and how hard he tries to, like, involve everyone and put everybody on the same page. And Baus, obviously, I had my, like, I wasn't sure how it's about to be because Baus, like, he plays, like, AD Sion, like solo Bolo, and like his plays like for example, for an AD carry, this is like the most opposite playstyle you can ever have.
You played with Adam, bro. It can't be that much different, bro. Like, it really can't be that much different.
Because Adam plays a different way, because Adam like gives waves to make stuff happen, right? But Baus' whole playstyle revolves around maximizing waves and pressure and drawing pressure into him, And sometimes this guy just dies 7 times, and then he just has the most damage and the highest level in the game. And I'm like, what? If I did this as an AD carry, I would be level 5, Like,
it makes you think just top lane is broken or what? Like,
I mean, I don't know. It's just such a different like way of playing the game that I would never think of if I didn't play in this team. And it ties back to the point of like that you guys mentioned, that what you wanted in your team is to have fun, and that's what Cadrel stressed like super hard for us too, because it's easy to get frustrated when obviously you're gonna lose scrims and stuff, you know, but it's such a unique opportunity to put people with such different experiences in the scene, right? You have like players like Reckless, Nemesis, who have played in like the top level of Europe for years, and people who like Baus, who hasn't played competitive, and it's like it's such an interesting thing to see this. So that's why it's so nice. But of course, our goal is to just, I mean, win as much as possible, and just obviously have fun doing it. And for me, it's also like after this many years, it's such a fortunate thing to be able to focus more on spending time with my family and my life here, because I felt like for years I focused. I'm sure it was the same for you guys. Like you were so focused on the results and how to say, like, yeah, on the results of like outcomes of what happened, that you kind of lost yourself in only caring about that. Like I remember when I was in LEC,
then you wake up and you're like 35 years old and you're like,
Yes.
what the fuck just happened, bro? Like, what happened, bro? I had a plan. I remember before esports, I had a plan. I'm like, by the time that I'm like, by the time I'm in my late 20s, I'm going to be like married. I'm going to have like kids. Like I had like all this stuff in my mind. Then I wake up the next day, I'm 35. Like I just fucking arguing with like fucking T1 fans on Twitter. I'm like, what the fuck happened to my life, bro? Like, how did I end up here? Like, shit, I thought big things were gonna come.
but it's so true, because like I tied my whole self-worth. I'm sure it was similar. My whole self-worth was tied to how I felt like I was playing and the results I had. And I like,
oh yeah, 100%.
when I was in LEC final, I felt like, and then okay, we didn't win. Okay, I just felt like it didn't even feel good. I just felt like relieved, or I don't even know what feeling I felt. It just like, and then we made worlds, but I was like, it's just fourth place, like whatever, you know. It's like, and then I was benched. So then all my self-worth that I built across the year, that was 99% tied to either my performance or the team's, it just gets squashed because I get benched or whatever. And then I just feel useless. Like, okay, I'm getting paid money for essentially doing nothing. And so it kind of, my perspective shifted a bit, because in the end, there is other things in life. I mean, of course, I want to be by far the best I can be. And I think still I can be. I have the skill and the drive, but I think it's really unhealthy to base all your self-worth on that. And that's just how my personality is. I think, as I said, probably you guys know it, and I've seen many like videos of like athletes or like, even pro players like Faker and stuff. You can see how hard they push themselves, right? And it's obviously to an unhealthy degree. And at one point, you just
kind of needs to be, right?
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
but exactly. I think
yes.
everyone that's like a real competitor has the same mindset, where it's like, who cares about like the healthiness at that point, really? Like that is like, it's just no one show me the guy that is like
100%.
giga healthy, like sleeping fucking perfect amounts, like training in the gym, like eating perfect amounts of food in league, that's actually like also a fucking like insanely top player. Like everyone that's like that's at the top is a fucking grinder who's doing it at an unhealthy amount. It's like, because the other people you're competing with are doing that, and like at the end of the day, the people that are able to do that and also tolerate it are the ones that succeed. Like not everyone can do that, but like there's various degrees to how much that affects you as like a person, right? Like some people, they love that. Like that's like what they need, you know? Like that's why when the Faker thing happened, where he was like banging his head against the wall, a lot of people were like, I saw a lot of the sentiment, because people just think I like hate Faker, right? So a lot of the sentiment was, oh, he should just like stop playing. Like he should just like retire, or like he should just not play the rest of the split. Like this is to an unhealthy degree. And like one thing that I wanted people to consider is like that could be potentially, like, I don't know him, right? Like that's for like the people that are closest to him and himself to evaluate. Like that's their own decision. But I could definitely see a world where somebody that's as hyper competitive as Faker, one of the worst things for his mental health could be to like be forced to stop playing, like have to like watch his team. Like this is a year where he won worlds, right? Like obviously it didn't look like they were going to win worlds at the time, but imagine if he thinks like that's his goal every year to win worlds, and then he's just like robbed of that. What could that do to, like, that could destroy him mentally. And I remember like that was something that I felt like other people just didn't understand that weren't like competing a lot. It was this is something that like a lot of people really the real competitors they thrive in the imbalance of your life, you know?
No, of course, like I completely agree. Like obviously, I remember in 2020, I would talk to people from other teams until 3 a.m. talking about draft because I was like, if I ban this, I bait them into this, then I can counterpick them. With Caitlyn Morg against Rogue, like I banned Draven Kalista, and I knew Hans would play Aphelios, and they went Aphelios Trash 1-2, and then we went Kate Morg, and we won that game or in 2020 summer. And I would talk until 3 a.m. trying to come up with it, you know, or like it's the same in sports. Like Kobe was waking up at 4 a.m. going to the gym every day. Like it's like, of course, it's their world pretty much. It's just competing, and it was for sure the same. It is the same for me. Like it's still by far the biggest part of my life, but I'm trying not to tie my whole self-worth into either how I'm perceived by people, because I've noticed it's what you guys mentioned. Like it just doesn't make sense that sometimes I'm here and sometimes I'm here. The reality cannot be like this. It has to be somewhere in the middle, like because it doesn't make sense. You can't be like the most evil person of all time and then super good. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm trying to not tie my self-worth as much into that, and you know, it's what Yamato mentioned. Like you have to find people who you are close with or who you resonate with, and then you care more about what they say than like other random people, right? Because if you cared about what every random person said, it's like I don't think you can ever be online. Like
it's very unnatural, right? It's like it's extremely unnatural to have so much exposure to so much people, right?
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
I think
the negative feedback is crazy. Like you think about like your everyday life, it's like normally a person will experience like some amount of criticism, and it will like if they ever hear something bad about themselves, it's crazy. But then you go online and it's like every aspect of your being is just like ripped apart constantly, and you're like, damn, bro, like how do you even manage this? And I think at some point you just become like jaded, and you just like I feel like in some way you have to like stop viewing them as like a person, you know?
Yes,
like
it's because I remember watching your stream like in the past year sometimes, and then some people would just say some stupid shit, and you would get super mad. And I was like, I can kind of get it, but like maybe it's a bit too mad. And bro, like there was a day, like a few days ago, like I was playing, and one guy said, "What the fuck is wrong with Crownie's eyes? Even sleeping? Is that just why are you so irritated? You talk like Nemesis. Is that a Slovenian thing? Is it because you don't sleep?" And then one guy said, "No, that's not. That can also become from too much sleep. That's probably what he did." And I told him, "But why are you like analyzing my face? Like,
bro, like it's well, I mean, the thing is like people just don't understand. Like, I mean, obviously, like people are just going to lack empathy in general. It's like a lot of times people will be trying to like trigger, like you wake up at like fucking 3 a.m. You're doing like LPL, and then somebody's just saying some fucking random bullshit in your chat. It's like, why are you so mad? It's like, motherfucker, I'm up at 3 a.m. Like, just turn. Like, I just want people to do this. Wake up at 3 a.m. every single fucking day, because you never get used to it, bro. I don't care what people say. You never feel like good about the schedule, right?
It's horrible, right? For health.
It's miserable. You wake up at 3 a.m. every day, and then just like turn on a camera and then just start trying to fucking speak for 5 hours. Like you're gonna just be like, it's hard to be in a good mood in that situation. You know, it's hard to be like, let's fucking go. Like if I wake up at like 9 a.m., I feel like a completely different person, bro. I'm like, oh my god, let's take on it. I like fucking wake up at 8. I get my coffee. I'm like ready to go, bro. It's a whole different fucking thing. But it's like, dude, people just don't understand like the situation you're in.
100%. Like it's exactly what you said. Like I really noticed it because people would just say the craziest things, and I was be like, but you're getting conclusions off of like a few minutes of me talking or one line, and you're making these crazy assumptions, and like for sure like the negative feedback can get too much, and for the top athletes or players or whatever, it's even magnified like I don't know how many times, like somebody like Faker or like, do you guys remember the story of the King Tian who got hated on by the store clerk You know the
Oh
one?
no, that was Panda C, I think.
Oh, Panda C, yeah.
It was Panda C.
He
Yeah.
just went to the store. Like, he got hard framed by the store clerk.
They just like called him fat or something, or like
he just got like he just
and,
goes
like-
to the store and he just gets framed.
yeah,
It's so sad.
yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's for sure like probably people don't. In the end, they don't realize that he's still a person that has feelings and feels bad or can perform bad because of 50 different factors, and they just see him as somebody who, plays the game. And yeah,
I think there is just the consequence of it. I think it's like in the end, it's like you're not creating anything of like value. You're not like making food or whatever. You're not producing something. You are creating entertainment, and it's like everyone engages with entertainment on such different levels. It's like people engage with entertainment in stupid ways, almost intentionally. It's like they don't want to think. They want to simplify it, and they want to look at it in their own way, and they want to like put it in their own box, right? It's like me and Dom, we always get a little bit frustrated, during the World Championship, because it's like a lot of people come with very, very strong opinions, but they didn't watch anything the entire year, and we like battle with that, right? But those are just guys that are like...
the worst was like MSI and group stage, Swiss stage of Worlds. People talking about BLG, like when MSI BLG played against PSG and they were like down 2-1, and then when BLG didn't look good, it's like the amount of just like the takes where it's like, this is the best team. How the fuck could this be the best team? How bad are the rest of the teams then? And it's like, bro, like,
there's no
they're
nuance,
just horrible,
right?
bro. Yeah, I mean, there's just no nuance. It's just like, why am I even having this conversation?
A read, a bad day, somebody's sick, but it's like the same. Did you guys ever read the stories of like the actors that play villains in movies? They get death threats in real life or something like.
That's crazy. The Joffrey kid, right?
The Joffrey kid got death threats in real life because people couldn't separate him from the character he played in a medieval TV show. Like, what the fuck are we talking
fantasy,
about?
Not even like just medieval. Yes. It's like literal. There's like dragons flying around and shit, and they're like, "This guy's a piece of shit." I know it.
It's so crazy. Like, wow, for sure. It's like, but there's a lot of benefits to this, like being able to do this as a way of living, right? Of course, but I think the first week I joined Los Ratones and we were screaming, I got a message like, just fucking leave the team, stop making it cringe for everyone, just have some honor and leave, you're so fucking bad. And I was like, what? We haven't even played with the full lineup. We've been playing for like 2 days and you already hate me. Like,
I've seen such crazy, because I think Velge is insane. He's somebody who I was watching actually last year when he was like rank 1, because I just like I obviously watch a lot of junglers. And he just goes, he plays a solo queue game. He's playing like a Wukong game, and I just like read some chat messages, and people are just like, bro, like, why are you fucking playing Wukong? Like, you should be practicing and playing tanks. Like, why are you not practicing tanks in solo queue? And I'm like, what the fuck is happening, bro? Like, I can't even like imagine typing. Like, I'm so cringed out by the comment. Like, I can't even like continue watching the stream. I had to close the stream, bro. It was affecting me too much. Like, I couldn't handle it.
yeah, for sure.
I felt like I was getting one guy through the fucking screen. It was so insane.
Yeah, I mean, like, because the one guy meme exists for a reason, but like when it happens to me, like when I watch a stream and it happens to someone, I'm like, why are you like? Just ignore him. When it happens to you, you actually start feeling why other people react that way, because it's like you have a bad day or you're having bad screams, you slept bad. You feel bad about your play, and then one guy just makes the most stupid comment of all time, and my blood pressure just like spikes.
Right. I think just the main issue is like, if the way we live, right, is in a way, every person we meet is kind of like a reflection of ourselves, in a way that we believe that people should be capable and people should be rational. And it's like when you argue with that one person, it's like the hope is that if he somehow rationally got to this conclusion, then rationally he should be able to get out. But there's no getting out. Because it's like the people are not a reflection of ourselves, it isn't the case.
That is very true, for sure. You have to, like, I guess, just make a shield for it and try to not let it get to you. But I imagine after years of like ton of online hate, it's just, I guess you have to like disassociate in a way.
It's like almost like you just.
Bro. I mean, I think you just have to like rationalize why people are saying certain things. They're like, okay, this guy is saying this because he watched this video or saw this one thing about me, and that warped their whole perception. So you don't take it as personally. You just kind of like reduce it down to like, why is somebody saying something like that? Because you're assuming, I think, a lot of the time that people are like coming up with their conclusions about you through like analysis of like multiple things, but it's really just like one or two things that they like saw, and then it's just like, that's like now that's who I am to you forever. Like it's just like, I'm the guy that flamed this one person one time. Like that's like why you believe that I deserve for my whole family to be like murdered in front of me. It's like, okay, I get it, bro. Like it makes sense.
I mean, also like most people, that at least when I get like a fucked up comment, I open up their Twitter. And it's only like fucked up comments on other people.
Everyone. Yeah, I've noticed.
Like that's just like
true.
the most bitter people of all time. Like,
I mean, it's just like
I feel
accounts.
so
like
sorry for them, you know? Like, what's happening there, man?
Yes, and I don't know if it's the same for you guys. Most of the hate I get on Twitter is from people who follow me. So it's like, I check, he says something shit, I check, follows you. And I'm like, wait, do you hate me or do you follow me? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
So notification bells, bro. They are ready to comment on everything.
Oh yeah, I guess they're the biggest fans. You know, that's what people say. Like it's crazy. Yeah, for sure. I mean, a part of it is definitely like the online aspect that they don't actually see you face to face. Because when I was at the Paris event, people were only nice. You know, but obviously that's like people who go watch there generally are fans. It's not, you know, but still, it's. I don't think I've ever gotten like a negative comment in real life from someone, but online,
I think I've had one negative interaction in real life where like somebody like came up to me and just put his like middle finger up into my face for like 5 seconds, and then they just ran away. Not even 5 seconds. It was literally just until I acknowledged them, and then they just ran away. Like I was gonna go like beat, like I was gonna like go chase them or something. But I was like in a booth. I was doing a sponsorship thing. I think I was at TwitchCon and I was like at a booth. Like I was like in a booth with like doing sponsor stuff. And then like one person did that and then they just ran away as if like I'm gonna like hurdle the fucking like table and stuff like in front of like in my fucking sponsored t-shirt or whatever, go start chasing them. It's like, what the fuck is this, bro? Why are you running?
Yeah, for sure. I noticed that too. Like in real life, people are very, very nice. It's probably just the like negativity online that is like magnified.
But it is actually true that I mean, there's a lot of people that just have like hate Twitter accounts, and I go to their thing and it's just them posting like what they think is the most fucked up thing they could say to like just every single content creator that they can find. It's like, oh, this is just a hate account. Like it's not even like I feel almost a little bit like sad in a way when I see it, because I'm like, damn, like I used to get people that were like only hating me. Like they had only, like I would go to their account and it was like only negative comments to me for like 50 messages. It was just only at me. But now it's like I see it and it's like 250 like messages to like 100 different people. It's like you don't even fucking care. Like the haters that I remember.
Selfish.
Like, I want like personal hate, you know? Like like this is like some bullshit nowadays. Like they're just hating for the game. Like they used to like
for the love of the game.
Yeah, they hate for the love of the game. It's fucked up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for sure. I've noticed it too. Like, I mean, now that that I'm streaming more often, you just get people who they just come into my. It's just like first time chatter. Oh, you're so fucking dog shit. All your opinions are shit. Like your forehead is massive. Like you know, like just like you're so fucking like just like why, bro? Like I've never even spoke. Like you don't know me. You've never spoken to me.
I have to say as well, though, boys. Like even though it's like interactions at this scale is unnatural, it's what's natural is to be very, very like let's say you put your hand on a very, very flat surface, right? It's completely flat. But it's like if there's like one breadcrumb on that flat surface, you will notice it. And it will bother you and it will not know you. There's because a lot of things are also like nice, but we are just
I completely agree
to be like overly focused, because I know that like I have good homies in my chat. I love them. You guys have good homies in your chat. So I wanted to round off by giving a huge shout out to the people that support us.
100%. Like
those are the real homies. And like often I notice myself as like the conversation is focused on the people that annoy us, but we should give the flowers to all the supporters too, because
100%.
They're really, really cool homies and they stick with us, They stick with us. I appreciate that more than anything,
Yeah, 100%. I noticed too. Like, there's so many positive comments, but I guess you just tend to focus on the one negative
Everyone focuses on the negative ones.
Yeah, and
it's
then
just
how it is.
natural. It's natural, bro.
yeah,
Yep.
but
It's-
for sure, there's so many. Like, I got way more positive ones than negative. We're just ranting or whatever. But
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. Like, the good outweighs the bad. There's probably more nice people than not, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Well,
Boys.
I think that's a nice
Yeah.
place to end it. That was by far the longest one, Crownie.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
what, three
God bless
hours,
you,
10
Crownie.
minutes, something like that.
Love
So yeah.
We get
I
you
was
back
enjoying it.
when we beat you in the NLC, bro.
Yeah.
We invite you
Hopefully,
back.
hopefully we
Hey,
meet
we're
in the finals.
Up the scrims. We're gonna have to up the scrims if we're gonna beat them, Yamato. What is this? We're scrimming
Bro,
one time a week.
we're ramping up now. We're
Every
ramping
day
up
for like
now. It's
6 hours.
Bro,
Hopefully
every
it's
time
the
these
finals.
guys, they say one guy can't, and they have reasons they want to climb. But to be honest, I was watching Los Ratones on the day when solo queue came out, and they were doing double block. I could feel the energy though, bro. Some people wanted to play solo queue in this season, but
I mean, double
they
block
stuck
at
out
the
strong.
evening. Yeah, it gets pretty tiring. But yeah, I mean,
All right, man.
hopefully we play each other in final. And again, thank you for the invite. And I really
Our
appreciate
pleasure.
you guys
You are
across
homie,
the
bro.
years. And I hope we can keep doing this for as long as possible.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Same, bro.
And thanks to
Agree,
all the
agreed.
fans and everyone listening.
All
Peace.
the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.